Good evening and welcome to the Gin and Tonic Show on Friday, the 13th of July. A warm welcome if you have just joined us. It certainly is warm over here in the UK, around 25 degrees and about as much as 30 degrees in London. So everybody is having what's commonly called a heat wave here in the UK because we don't get hot weather that often. But if you're from other hot parts of the world, you'll probably just laugh. So there we go. Good evening, Sops.
You're so right. I tell you, it's so nice when at night it cools off to 33, 34. And you think, oh, what a lovely cool night. Let me go get a sweater.
Goodness gracious. I don't know how you sleep. I mean, at the moment, I'm battling to sleep.
No, you get used to it. Like I said, I mean, we had the house up to 29. I mean, in the beginning, it was down to 22. But then as you get used to it after 3 months, we had it up to 29 and we were quite comfortable.
Goodness gracious me. That's crazy. So yes, good evening, everybody. Good evening to Stops. So we will be joined, hopefully very shortly. I'll be keeping an eye with an ex-Muslim by the name of Harris Sultan. He has recently debated a Muslim online, and I'm sure we'll chat a little bit about that. I just sort of liked his style and so forth, and we'll get more into that. So he's based in Australia, so he'll be getting up in the wee hours of the morning. So we will thank him very much for joining us at this stage. And we'll wait for him. We have got some crazy comments. We've got a little bit of news, so maybe we'll just let that part flow for now. And then as soon as he joins us, we'll get to have a chat. I really enjoy speaking to ex-Muslims. I think they are kryptonite, in my view. And so the more we can have on here, the better. So, Stops, what have you got for us? We were chatting about a specific incident recently in the news. What was that all about?
Well, I've got a couple. And if somebody wants, I can always show the background, the pictures.
Yeah, bring up the screen there and show us.
Because I didn't want to because there's so many. I just want to mention, like in the Huffington Post, there was a report about a Tamil who was hacked to death for being an atheist. Because remember, we heard this a couple of weeks ago, where people said, "Nah, not many people get killed because they're not Muslims, and there's no compulsion in religion, and you don't need to worry." Well, here's an example where somebody is being hacked to death just for not believing what the others believe. Then we have the Iranian craziness once again. After this girl was sentenced to I don't know how many years for taking off her hijab. Another girl now, and Baidi Hijabi, I mean, she's an 18-year-old girl, and she had a video of herself dancing at home or something to some music, and she's brilliant. Okay, I think she has a lot of talent. I mean, she's not my style from a good-looking point of view, but she has a certain something which she expresses with her body, the way that she moves, the way that she can look, the way that she moves her eyes, the way that even the expression of her face can change completely by just her changing the eyebrows. So she's amazingly good in expressing emotions and sentiments the way that she does it while she is dancing. So I think it's phenomenal what kind of a talent this girl has. She posted this on Instagram, and yes, she said, "Well, I was just having fun, and I thought people are going to like it, and I'm going to get more followers." She's an 18-year-old girl, please, for crying out loud. And she's been arrested, and she's supposed to go to jail for like 20 years. And I can't understand this. I cannot. Was it 2 years in jail? Some 18 years of probation. Thanks, Beach. So this isn't. I mean, 2 years in jail, 18 years of probation, just for dancing in private. I mean, there's nothing. I mean, I'm speechless. I can't get it. There was nothing like sexual, or it wasn't like she was doing a striptease or like she was doing anything. I mean, this was really as harmless as it can get, and totally innocuous, totally. And then she gets arrested, and for me, this is absolutely crazy. And I'm not going to play the video. I mean, I think almost everybody has seen it by now because I saw now because I got this like beginning of the week, and by now it's made its rounds on Twitter and things like that. But it's really great. It's really great. And Beach, the woman who removed the headscarf and put it on a stick is something else. Okay, there's two different things. The one with the stick is like something like 3 months ago, and now this girl, this was last week, arrested because she put a video of herself dancing, and of course dancing, but she was fully clothed. Right, she was not wearing a chador, what you wear traditionally wear in Iran, but normal clothes. Okay. Okay, then we have a Muslim mob where they attacked Christians who were participating in a Bible study at a migrant camp in Greece. And what they say here is that a disturbing video has emerged of what appears to be Hezbollah fighters torturing a mother and a daughter, both refugees in Syria. And this is sick, because they say that ISIS gunmen killed several members of the family as they returned home from a wedding. The terrorists separated the men from the women and children and killed the adult males on the spot in full view of their family members. Now, it doesn't say here whether they were Muslims or what they were. It's just the brutality. It's just the callous, approach to this whole thing, which I think is it's amazing. Gunmen killed a Sunni preacher by the name of Abed El Shakur Kart outside a mosque in Khash in Iran. Did you also have this? Oh, I thought you just said yeah.
No, I didn't see that one, no.
Oh, okay. Then
regarding what you said before.
In Germany, we have clergy members warning that Muslim migrants are threatening Christians, because they have these asylum centers, which they built in a hurry. These are porter camps. These are all sorts of things. Or they're using old barracks from the army, which have been decommissioned. And they put them up there. But the problem is, if you're from Syria, you can be Christian, you can be Muslim, you can be Zoroastrian. You can be anything. You can't see on the outside what favorite god somebody has, okay? And they put them together into these camps because you think they're all refugees and they'd be glad and happy to be safe and away from the war zone. And no, they're more worried about Islam than anything else. So they go and attack the Christians because Christians are non-believers. So, yeah. So what this guy says is, in our efforts, and this is so telling, in our efforts to be tolerant, we are, which are in themselves praiseworthy, right? We cannot just let Christians become some kind of guinea pigs, he said. And he bemoaned the moral climate in the church, which seems to have bowed to political correctness. So even the church is not allowed to criticize Islam anymore.
Yes, you're Islamophobe, right?
Exactly, immediately. This is what you hear as soon as you criticize something, you're an Islam. And nobody really knows what the bloody word means. It's so stupid. And there are a lot of people who feel guilty. And this is the worst part. Instead of saying, excuse me, what does that mean? Well, Islamophones means you're criticizing Muslims. So why don't you just say criticizing or critical of Muslims instead of saying Islamophobe, because Islam does not, is not the same as Muslims. So
it's an irrational fear, isn't it? Irrational fear of Islam, which that's not possible. It's not possible to have an irrational fear of Islam.
Well, it would be possible if there were nothing to fear about Islam.
Well, yes, if it was a peaceful religion, yes. Yeah. Exactly.
And the other, okay, I don't know if I need to repeat this. I always, if anybody comes up, I always repeat, Islam, we know what these things are. Islam is the political ideology, and a phobia is a brain malfunction. So are you saying that Islam is a brain malfunction? I turn it around on them and say, listen, what the hell are you using there? You don't even understand what it is that you are talking about. So, but I've never heard a reaction to this. People just shut up about it and they just stop using it. But if they, as soon as I'm gone, they'll probably turn around and use it the same way as before. So.
Yeah. Once somebody uses that word, like people have in Speaker's Corner, I just, whatever respect I had or level I thought they were at, they just take a nosedive for me. They're now like, you've taken my toy away, you're a little thief or something. It's just like, emotional language that doesn't really mean anything. By the way,
Caffeine. Sorry.
Who? Oh, Caffeine. You know him? Her?
No, I just saw the comment. Happy Friday the 13th. I didn't realize.
No, me neither. By the way, I'm coining a new thing. I'm coining something called the PW approach, the Paul Williams approach. I've told you a million times. I'm not going to talk about it again. As in, like, I haven't actually responded to you personally and given you my view, but I've talked about it a million times, so I'm not going to repeat it. This came up at last week's live thing when I was speaking to Abbas. So there was a sort of reasonably polite Muslim Abbas.
Yes.
Actually,
this is a different Abbas, okay?
This is
E.W. Dawa Abbas.
No. He comes down there. He's polite. I mean, obviously we disagree on virtually everything, but he's polite, and he said he's going to go look at the fraction errors, the inheritance errors in the Quran, and of course Paul butted in. And I noticed that Soko Films put up a video as well where he butted in there. So Bob the Builder was having a discussion with some Muslim, and he butted in there as well. So obviously maybe this is his new modus operandi. I'll come and butt in conversations. And stick my nose in where it's not wanted. There's no politeness. Hey, can I join in? Can I say a word, or whatever the case is? So I'm now using. And so when this whole inheritance thing came up with Abbas, Paul, and you can go watch it on the live stream. It's on the Speakers Corner UK channel. And he basically said, "I've told you. We've talked about this, or I've told you a million times. I'm not going to repeat it." And I said to him, you can see my hand coming out. Going, well, just refute me here on camera so that I never bring it back to Speaker's Corner again. No, I'm not going to do that. I've done it before. I'm not going to do it again. So that's the PW approach. So I'm going to try that with some Muslims. So when they laugh at me and go, that's ridiculous, I say, no, I agree. But I was just testing out with something I call the PW approach. And it happens to be a particular Muslim here in Speaker's Corner. So you have, in fact, invited one of your fellow brothers here. So, but go look it up if you don't believe me. Please don't believe anything I say. So there we go.
Okay, on a more somber note, a student in Pakistan was brutally lynched on April 13th after being accused of blasphemy. And this is, and okay, this comes from the Clarion Project. They all, I don't know if there's some foundation. I wouldn't call them a think tank, but they're a group of people who investigate all sorts of, well, I wouldn't call them crimes. I don't know what you want to call them, incidents. Which are based in Islam.
Yeah.
And they collect this stuff. And the thing is, they're not pulling this out of their arse or something. They substantiate every single thing that they are saying, okay? So if something happens, they bring you the report, they bring you the source, where it comes from. So if you want to have any kind of idea what is going on in the world of Islam, in the peaceful world of Islam, you just need to go to Clarion Project, and they give you all the details. This doesn't have the same feeling as what is it? The Lion. Yes. What is this thing called? By Spencer, the Jihad Watch, which is, in my eyes, is a little bit too sensationalism, and it's not substantiated. And they agree. They say, look, what we're doing is we're just collecting. We have no way of verifying. We can't do that. We're just reporting. That's it. But Clarion is a little bit more cautious in this, and they go and verify everything. Okay, then I have a report from KSA.
Yeah.
My favorite. Sorry? Why do I keep on getting your sound?
No, carry on. It's nice to have a lag here because, is my sound poor?
Yeah, there was. You'd make a good Christian speaking in tongues.
Oh, my word.
Okay.
I have restarted my machine. I tested the internet.
Okay. There's a girl called Dina, aged 24, so she's not a teenager anymore, who'd saved up some money, booked a flight, and ran away from her abusive family to Australia. She stopped over in Manila, and she was dragged off the plane and kept at the airport in Manila so that the family could catch up with her and then drag her back to Saudi Arabia. And according to witness accounts, they beat her, dragged her kicking and screaming onto a plane back to Saudi.
And this was all allowed, was it?
Yeah.
She was an adult.
It's a Muslim country, that's it.
Who was abducted by people in Manila, which is Indonesia, isn't it?
Philippines.
Goodness gracious.
An ex-ISIS man is now making a prophecy that the next big attack will be by a child in Europe. And you can go, it's also, this is also by the Clarion Project, and it's on home, human rights violence, child abuse, ex-ISIS, and then next attack will be by a child in Europe. So there you go. So I wonder if this is going to be, what's going to happen, if this is really going to happen, if we're going to see now, because the airports, border guards, everybody is now, you know, warned, don't let this in, don't do this, and blah blah blah. So there have been a lot of precautions so that known people don't get into the country. But then what are you going to do if this is a child? Can't.
Yeah, that's,
Then,
you're not going to be able to stop that, are you?
Exactly. And there's a Mauritanian blogger, and guess what? He was sentenced to death for blasphemy. But the sentence was commuted to 2 years in prison. This was 2014. He hasn't yet been released. So they're just keeping him, just someone else's work, just like that. Without any reason, without anything, they're just keeping a guy in jail for blasphemy of all things. Now, blasphemy is something where even if I say, I don't think that gods exist, this is blasphemous in some countries. It's not that I need to say your Allah is an asshole or something. No, the mere fact that I am doubting this God, the existence of a God, can be considered or can be interpreted as being blasphemous. That's crazy. In my eyes, this is totally crazy. And this is why it's so bloody important, so hugely important to get free speech out. To never, ever let go of free speech. And these, I mean, even in Ireland, they're slowly, I mean, can you believe that they were told that Pakistan is now generating a blasphemy law, along the guidelines of what the Irish have come up with. So this is now the role model for blasphemy, Ireland. Can you believe it? It should be so embarrassing.
So tell us what the Irish one is, if you know it off the top of your head.
I don't know the wording. I just know that they have a blasphemy law that you are not allowed to blaspheme any god, any deity, anything. If you say something about whatever, then you can be punished. And this was a big issue because I don't know if you remember Stephen Fry. He was in an interview.
Mm-hmm.
So he's on record as saying, well, listen, God, why are you such an asshole? What's wrong with you? Number one, why are you hiding? Why are you making such a mess? Why are you such a callous bastard? Why are you providing people, or why are you making people and animals and everything suffer so much? What's wrong with you? And why do you give me a brain so that I can think this way? And, you know, totally logical, totally rational, totally everything. He was investigated. Stephen Fry, he was investigated.
What, in Ireland?
What he did. In Ireland, on Irish TV. And I made a video about this, commenting on this, and I took 15 seconds and I got a copyright strike because I was using 15 seconds of Irish TV when he was saying this. I mean, I got it back, but they had the audacity to go to me and say that I shouldn't use this. Because I think at the end of the day, they are a little bit, well, embarrassed about this whole thing. Anyway.
Goodness gracious.
And finally, oh, this was the first story. I mixed it up. Iranian was sentenced to 20 years in prison, 2 years plus 18 for removing a headscarf in protest. Demonstrators says she was jailed for opposing the compulsory hijab and waving a white flag of peace in the street. Welcome to the wonderful world of Islam, the peaceful, wonderful world.
Yep, but as we'll always hear from some of our Muslim friends, that's not the proper Islam. These are not real Muslims. They're not following the proper version of the Sharia. If they just did it our way, it would be the best society in the world. It's funny how like over 50 societies just haven't quite got this right yet. maybe these guys in Speaker's Corner and these odd Muslims floating about that have their own view on what the perfect Islamic state would look like, maybe they're just much more knowledgeable than all the scholars and 50 plus countries that are either Muslim, have a Muslim government or are a Muslim majority. Yeah.
56, it's funny because 56 are what are considered to be Islamic because they're organized in the OIC, in the Organization for Islamic Cooperation. And they say it's 56 and a half because they're also counting Palestine. Now, I don't understand Palestine. I don't understand this whole issue. This is why something, I've always wanted to debate this with somebody who can educate me on this, because I never quite understand what this Palestine thing is. But they're saying it's 57, but it's actually 56 and a half because they sort of include Palestine in it, but 56 others. And this is just as a, by the by, I just want to show off a bit. The GDP of all 56 OIC countries combined is less than the GDP of the US. And this is including Saudi, this is including Qatar, the highest income, in the whole world per person. And they still can't make up for it if you take everything combined. The combined GDP of all 56 countries is less than that of the US. There you go. Welcome to the wonderful world of Islam.
Yes, indeed.
And it's 2% of all scientific papers, by the way, 2%, where Muslims always claim we have 20% of the population, but they only manage 2% of scientific papers. Congratulations on that one.
Yeah, well, science and Islam are not entirely compatible, are they? So I'm surprised they've got that much, to be honest. But
yeah, just as a reminder quickly, tomorrow evening, apparently, I'm actually quite sick and tired of announcing this, but once again, I am announcing that tomorrow I'm going to have a chat with a Muslim apologist about science in the Qur'an, and maybe this time it's going to go through, since people love making these announcements and then they run away. They just simply don't rock up, and then afterwards they say, well, you didn't notify me, well, you didn't do this. It's always my fault, okay? Where I'm sitting there waiting for them, and they always have some excuse why they couldn't rock. I mean, couldn't pitch. It's stupid, really. Tomorrow it's happening. We'll give you. We don't know. We're still working on the finalities. We'll let you know tomorrow via Twitter and stuff.
Are you going to share who it's with yet, or are you keeping that?
Yeah, well, it's Nadir Ahmed, and he is a guy who's been doing this for a while. He was actually hesitant to do this with me because he says he has a reputation to lose and I don't have any following. So he is the one who's sort of boosting me. So thank you, Nadia, for boosting me. This is really very gracious of you that you are prepared to boost me. So,
well, on that note, we have a few comments, and one of them is actually that. So let me get to that comment. Here it is. Let me share that. Why not? We're still waiting for Harris Sultan. I have. He did say that he got a Facebook strike. So let me just see. What is he saying? He said here, please send me the link on this profile, which is a slightly different one. Facebook community standards. I got my account, so presumably there.
What did he do this time?
I don't know. Hopefully, if he sees the link and he joins us, then he'll be able to let us know what happened there. But let me.
He sneezed too much to the left.
Yes, he probably, said something that somebody might find offensive. You know the story. The same old thing. So, right. Let me bring this up. Present to everybody. And speaking of which, here we are. So this is my comment on the debate between Harris Sultan and Nadir Ahmed. I said that was a poor debate, and not from Harris. I pay close attention to the tactics used, and perhaps we'll do a deconstruction to show the disingenuous approach of this Nadir. I did spell it correctly. Nadir guy. And he responded, I have contacted the opposing team, and they conceded defeat. Allahu Akbar. So have you found any of my alleged disingenuous arguments yet? And I responded, Nadir Ahmed, you appear to be a completely delusional individual. Anyone who is not deluded and watches this debate will see you did not prove that embryology is accurately portrayed, and in fact produced a source that says the exact opposite of what the Quran says. But by all means, continue your delusion if it makes you happy. Some of us prefer what is true or likely true, which you clearly do not, even when your own source contradicts the Quran. A spectacular example of how not to bring evidence for your position. So there we go. If you want to go watch it,
I'm sure he still doesn't understand this. He's really, I'm going to finish this off tomorrow. Okay, I'm going to totally annihilate any kind of claim that there is embryology in the Quran tomorrow. Okay, this I know, but he will not understand it.
Well, keep your eyes out on the the various channels. Make sure you subscribe to all the channels and keep an eye on Twitter. What time is it stopped for people potentially, hopefully at this stage?
1300 New York time. It is 1800 UK time, 1700 UTC, I think. I remember correctly.
Yeah, so that would be 1900 or 2000 or 2100, somewhere wherever you are.
Yeah.
In that area.
Yeah, it's a little bit later for me, but I don't want to make this too long. Okay, I don't think it needs to be. This is not going to be a long discussion.
Well, you never know. These sort of things do sort of drag on. But maybe you can do the slam dunk really quickly and get it over with. So keep an eye out for that, guys. Let's do a couple more of these. We haven't got too many to do here. Sabua knows exactly what he's talking about, and he truly understands it, unlike the so-called neo-atheists. He has properly refuted so many, most so-called experts. The so-called enlightened people are all still wailing in the dark, and they don't want to accept the facts that are presented. I know that both Christians and atheists keep arguing from a point of ignorance. At least the Christians know they are stupid and don't hide it. Atheists just claim to be smart, but the arguments are showing the opposite. So again, a wonderfully deluded individual. I think this was on the discussion where Jamie or James was having a discussion with Sabur on the ladder, who was sort of shouting over him. You can't really have a discussion on a ladder anyway. The person on the ladder tends to dominate because they can shout and look down and all that sort of. So there we go. Oh, this is what you'll love. This one. Let me make this a bit bigger.
Answer is just saying that Harris slapped him silly, but he does not see this. He does not understand this.
Yeah. All right, let me do this one and make it nice and big here.
This is good.
So this is Asadullah Ali, who was on Videovids' thing. So I said, why don't you join us on the Jinn&Tonic show and defend Islam? Videovids went easy on you, and you can expect a more robust challenge from us. Video was respectful, that's all. Sorry, something you guys could learn. I have no interest in discussing with peasants looking for more views. Tell SS my condolences on his failing channel. So I responded.
He hates me with a passion.
Yes, no, I can see that. I said, respect is subjective and earned. A reminder of these verses in the book you purport to follow. 5, Surah 5:8, Surah 17:37, and Surah 31:19. For those who haven't, go look those up. Those are about being, what's the word? Being in humility. Being, what's the correct way of saying that? Humble is the word. Thank you. Yes, being humble. I understand your reluctance, though. No philosophical training will make up for Islam. So just thought I'd toss one back in his direction. So there we go. Stops. My condolences, or his condolences, rather. Hopefully that'll help you sleep better tonight.
No, you'll have to say that again.
So there you go. Of course, we're all peasants, and
you'll have to, that.
Oh, what part did I miss?
No, forget it. At the moment, you're not coming through at all.
Good. Let me try and move on. Can you hear me now?
I can hear. Can you hear me now? I think this is what I heard you say.
Hello.
Okay, Amina.
Bring here for a minute. Can you?
No, it doesn't change.
I mean, now I've stopped sharing the screen.
It comes and goes.
Ongoing dispute up.
Okay, at the
I mean,
moment it's good.
I'm sitting right next to my router. I've taken it to the ombudsman. For those who are not familiar with the UK, ombudsman is like the overseer if you have a complaint with a company and there's a internet who's refusing to fix my internet because the download speed is guaranteed, quote unquote. They won't fix my upload. Just drop into here. I've got a lot of problems with sound. So at the moment, I'm challenging them through the official channels. Yeah. So I apologize for that. I don't know if I can do any more of those stops. It just seems like it kills the audio.
Well, just bring it out and I'll just read it.
Okay, you read it. Okay, fair enough. Way to do.
Okay, this is a Muslim threatens Tan, Malaysian Buddhist, and Amina says this guy should be beaten for his dirty tongue. Yeah, this is what you call free speech. You're not allowed to say anything. You're not allowed to criticize anything, especially if it is your worldview or your ideology that is being criticized. Then he should be beaten. Yeah. Don't you want to take a stick to him and flog him 100? How many? 100 times? Or if Tan says something controversial, would you take the stick and he should bend down and you're going to beat him for saying something, just for using words? Is that what you want? Makes me sick. Next, please. By the way, if anybody wants to comment on this, if anybody wants to ask something, feel free to do so. Islam, cue a user who wants to be a Salafi. Oh, okay. Beholder, okay, I'll have to explain this. I thought this will be, just like that, but it's not. Beholder God is the guy who got me onto YouTube, okay? Because I was just a casual viewer when I was first starting to look at Islam. And I made a comment, and he made a pretty nasty remark. And I said to him, "Who the fuck do you think you are?" And he made a video. And I thought, I can do that. So I made my first response video using the onboard video program that you get with Windows. So I just I just fired it up and clicked on record and say, well, thank you very much, but this is what it is. And I think he is the one, because he's always been very bitter about the 2 videos that I made with him as a response video. And I used to have them on Vimeo, and my entire Vimeo account got shut down because, violating the community standards and all that. They don't tell you what it is. But before that, I got a warning by Beholder God telling me that I should stop criticizing it and take those 2 videos down, which I didn't do. So I'm assuming that he is the one that I have to thank for having lost Vimeo. But I mean, I wasn't using it that much. I wasn't crying about this, but yeah, that's it. So he writes, because I lost so many channels, Allahu Akbar, and then you get this tilde thing, and then exclamation mark, and everything is in capitals, right? Because it's very difficult to find the caps lock key on a computer, so it's like he's shouting everything, At least he doesn't have a problem with capitalization. So glad that your channel got destroyed, and I think the destroyed is in bold. He loves this. Be YouTube. By YouTube. Truly hope that this one goes as well, and I will pray that Allah will send you to the lowest pits of Jahannam, you hating bigot. Good riddance. Who exactly is the bigot? Okay, I don't think he understands or sees the irony in that.
Nah.
I don't think that you. And the thing is that he hopes that this one goes as well, which it hasn't, and he will pray sometime that Allah will send me to the lowest pits of Jahannam. For what exactly? What exactly? This is a God I'm going up against, okay? So I'm telling a God that he's full of shit, and then he thinks that this God should at some stage punish me. Shouldn't a God, especially one who in sentence number 2 of chapter 1 in the Quran is called the most merciful, the all merciful, okay? He is going to worry about a human which, according to Muslims, was created by this God in the knowledge that this human was going to criticize this, this idea of a God existing. And then this God will punish me for the incompetence that it showed by creating me the way that it created me, punishing me for using my faculties that were given to me by the God. I mean, there's so much wrong in the logics here. it's,
Complete fail, huh?
Okay, that's it. I just thought this message is so great because it's so it's like a symbol. It symbolizes the stupidity, the total ignorance, and the complete utter lack of thinking that some of these people have. And there you have it. All they have is hate. And this hate is in capital letters. I can't, I mean, I don't think the design, I mean, if the Zionists were paying me more, I could have a lot more hate. I could be hateful all the time. But there's simply, I mean, if they would pay me what they're paying Sarah and Kalam and Christian Prince and Bill Warner and Rationalizer and all these other guys, I mean, David Wood, of course. So if these Zionists would pay me the same money, I would be so full of hate. It would be amazing. But unfortunately, I need like a side job, you know. So next to the hate, I also need to work to make the money because they're not paying me enough. But
yes, they're not giving you enough, right? Okay, next.
Oh, I thought that was it. Oh, this is okay. Okay, this was interesting. Okay, this was interesting. Now, I think most people have followed a little bit that this is a guy, he's an imam in Texas, and he was on the Jinn&Tonic show who came on here to tell us what we were doing wrong. And then when I asked him, well, what exactly were we doing wrong? He says, well, I don't know what you were doing wrong. I don't remember what you said. So he came on here totally clueless and said, but we're doing everything wrong. So I said, okay, well, then tell us what we're doing wrong. And then he made some claims that smoke is equal to gas, which is total nonsense. And that, what was it, embryology is in the Quran, and that according to the Quran, alcohol is prohibited, and things. Total nonsense. So this guy doesn't know the Quran, doesn't know Islam, doesn't have the first clue about anything. He's just got a big mouth, and he talks and talks and talks. I mean, every time, if you ask him for the time, you need to take half an hour while he explains to you what a watch is, how it works, what the numbers are on the clock face, and what the big thing, the big hand represents, and the little hand. Instead of just telling you 5:45 or something, he carries on for half an hour explaining everything. I don't need that. Okay, I just asked him for the time. So this guy then has now got it in for me, and he tells me, like, I hate Muslims. Now that is so untrue, and I think everybody knows, who knows me just a little bit, knows that this is not true. So he keeps on telling me that I am an atheist. And I said to him, look, I'm not an atheist because da 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 da. And then he says, yeah, but here's the definition of an atheist. And he pulls up a definition from 100 years ago from some Christian site, and of course it's wrong. So I say that's exactly why I'm not an atheist, okay? Because all the baggage that is sort of associated with that word doesn't apply to me. So, you know, I just prevent the whole thing and just say, I'm not an atheist, finished. All right. So after now, I don't know, is this a month already, or maybe even 6 weeks, okay? Now he comes and says, let me ask you a simple question. Do you believe in God, or a God, or the God meaning creator? Yes or no? Can you believe it? After how many weeks? And I said to him, number one, I do not believe there is sufficient evidence to accept creator gods can exist. Number two, I reject the unwarranted and unsubstantiated claims made by those who believe gods or goddesses can exist. Summary, there is no good reason to believe gods or goddesses exist, so I don't. And then, and this is now the thing, Look at what you are doing. You first spread lies and falsehoods. You first deceive people. Okay? And only then, and only then do you start asking the right questions. That is what Islam can do to a human brain. It's hatred first and reasoning later. Silence, no reaction. And this is what I
Yeah.
find interesting, that they first go and spew hate and give you all sorts of things. And only after a while they realize, actually, I'm the one who's being the idiot here. And this is where I'm thinking to myself, does he actually realize how stupid he is? Does he realize after reading this that he's a complete moron? That's why I put this here, just to show people, this is after so many weeks. He finally asked me, instead of jumping on me and saying you're an asshole, you're a liar, you're this, you're this, let me ask you, do you actually believe in God? I mean, if he would have come on the show and started like that, the whole thing would be completely different. My attitude towards Kenny Boma would be completely different. But no, he has to come here being a dick, and then after I don't know how many weeks, then he asked the question.
Yes. No more time wasting there, hopefully.
No. I mean, he's busy now making videos and videos and videos about the Jinn&Tonic show. So, but what the hell? I actually thought of making a response, but I thought, it's really not worth it. It's not worth arguing with the guy because everything he says is wrong, so it doesn't really make sense. Yeah, and this is quite funny. This is now the drilling that is being performed in Yemen, and I'm not 100% sure where I've seen a picture like this before, but I think sometime in history there was a drilling sort of, I don't know, attitude that resembles this somewhat. And I thought to myself, why is it that we have neo-Nazis which are being, well, persecuted and prosecuted? We have a guy who shows his dog lifting his front right arm, paw, leg, whatever you want to call it. And they get sent to jail. This guy is being prosecuted because he shows a video of his dog saying hi with his arm. And then we have pictures like this. And nobody bats an eyelid. Boy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Oh, pull-ups. Yeah, I just said Kenny's been making video responses. Like he's so full of hatred, he can't stop himself. So he's doing that. And that's why I said I want to make a response with them. Oh, you had another one. Oh, sorry. Okay, Jackson Jones, Abu Bakr Muhammad Al-Razi. Oh, this is good. I don't know if I haven't read this, but if he is quoting Al-Razi, this is brilliant because Al-Razi hated Islam. Okay, Muhammad ibn Al-Razi. Oh, if the people of this religion,
There you go. Slowly, it's
are asked about the proof for the soundness of their religion, they flare up, get angry, and spill the blood of whoever confronts them with this question. Now remember, this was more than 1,000 years ago. Okay? They forbid rational speculation and strive to kill their adversaries. This is why truth becomes thoroughly silenced and concealed. And now this is brilliant. You claim that the evidentiary miracle is present and available, namely the Quran. You say, whoever denies it, let him produce a similar one. Indeed, we shall produce 1,000 similar, from the words of rhetoricians, eloquent speakers, and valiant poets, which are more appropriately phrased and state the issues more succinctly. They convey the meaning better, and their rhyme prose is in a better meter. By God, what you say astonishes us. You are talking about a work which recounts ancient myths and which at the same time is full of contradictions and does not contain any useful information or explanation. And then you say, produce something like it. Now, The funny thing is, this quote by Al-Razi,
Brilliant, huh?
it was on Wikipedia up until a couple of weeks ago. And just, I don't know how, I made a screenshot of this on Wikipedia. And 2 days later, I came back and I because I thought, no, the angle is not right. I need to include one sentence above it. And it had disappeared. Muslims have completely wiped this quote. They have replaced it with harmless stuff showing what a brilliant guy Al-Razi was and what a good Muslim he was. This is how dishonest Muslims are when it comes to falsifying Wikipedia. And I've got screenshots of this. From one day to the next, it disappears.
Yes, what can you say? What can you say? Huh?
Allahu Akbar. It can't be. This Allah cannot be so Akbar, really. I mean, if he has to resort to tactics like this, if he can't, I mean, this is an all-powerful God. Why doesn't he do anything? Why doesn't, I mean, it says, I mean, please, I don't know how many people have come across this. You always ask me for things that are really, really, really wrong and easily explained wrong in the Quran. Okay? Go to chapter 13, and there it says, if God hates you, he will use thunder or thunderclaps to smite you, to kill you, to chastise you. So thunder, okay, not lightning, because the word lightning is in the Quran. So Muslims, of course, say, well, it's not, everybody knows that where there is thunder, there's also lightning. No, this is exactly my point, because lightning is in the Quran. So the people at the time knew the difference between thunder and lightning. And there it specifically says thunder. Thunder is what God uses to kill people, to punish them. So why doesn't he send thunder to me and kill me if he is so powerful? Or is he too merciful to do that? That would be a new one.
Well, I've just been in contact with Harris. He's up. It's a good morning there. I've sent him the link, so hopefully he will be
coffee?
Joining us shortly. As I said, we'll be joined by Harris Sultan, an ex-Muslim who's currently residing in Australian area somewhere. So it's very early there. I think it's around 6 a.m., give or take, somewhere in that vicinity. So we've just got to bear with us and bear with him until he joins us here. Imagine getting up 6 o'clock in the morning. So it would be a Saturday morning, no less, as well, just to come on the show. So we'll definitely appreciate him joining us shortly. So
hello, humble sick girl. Not sick. I mean, sick. You're a sick girl, but not sick. You're a healthy sick girl. There you go. No, you're a healthy Sikh girl. I think that's how you pronounce it.
So if you are watching this, welcome to you. We've got over 60 viewers. Please give us a few thumbs up here. We try to bring you something different each week. So give us some thumbs up. Give us some appreciation here. Oh, man. Give us some appreciation.
Show us some love.
That too. If you got any comments, pop that into the comment. If you're a Muslim, you want to join us, let us know. We're constantly looking for Muslims, but I think Stop scares them off. Last Sunday, I was at Speaker's Corner. The videos are on my channel at the moment. The live streams are on my channel, and Stops was in my ear, metaphorically speaking. He was on Skype, and we walked around asking a few people things. I have as well, just for interest. I have contacted Shabir Yusuf, and he gave me his card like it was a business. We've been in contact. I've sent him a response because I said to him, do you want to discuss the Islamic inheritance error in the Quran? He sort of smiled, and if you go watch the video, he didn't want to do it there in Speaker's Corner. He realized Stops was in my ear, so maybe that was not the opportunity.
It made him nervous. Did you see that?
It did, sort of. He didn't know who it was in my ear and stuff.
Yeah,
and yes, as soon as you have somebody in your ear, or somebody might be giving you some information, but it's all very well when sort of Muslims stand around in a big group, isn't it? And they all fire questions left, right, and center. But the moment you have somebody in your ear, oh my goodness, now it's almost as if, there's TJ, good evening, or good afternoon, or very late evening for you, I guess it is. How are you? I don't know if he's there. So yes, we'll repeat that again at some point. We'll pop down to Speaker's Corner again and see if we can get Stops in my ear. We'll do it slightly differently. I think I was chatting to Stops. I think it was a little bit open-ended question because Stops knows all the nuances, and that's not really going to come across at Speaker's Corner. So we'll probably use a slightly different approach next time. But still, it was. It was
but I like your idea. I mean, this is something that we can share. It's very good to keep it simple. The KISS principle, to show very, very easy questions and show that there is not a lot of wiggle room here. So that you know, if you're like with this thunder thing, so it's very easy to say, why do you think a God will say in the book that I am going to use thunder to kill you? Where we know full well that thunder cannot kill you, it's the lightning. So why would a God not say, lightning, I will use lightning, but use thunder? So does this God expect the humans to correct the mistakes it makes in the Quran? And this is a very, very easy and simple and very single question where you don't need to go and do any research. The same thing with the water. Are we created from water? And the guy then says, well, it could be semen. Well, if you sit in a cafe in Egypt and you ask a waiter for a glass of ma, he will not come back with a glass of semen. He will come back with a glass of water. So these are very easy questions that you can ask. And they are, if not anything else, embarrassing for the people because they show that, number one, you've read the Quran, you know what it says. And number two, this is a mistake that they can't rectify. They need to start waffling and they need to make apologies. And like this little guy, I mean, he was so confused in the end. He just started like word salad. Nothing coherent came out of his mouth. And that's a very good point.
Yes. So do go and watch on Speaker's Corner UK. I did 3 live streams there. I think it was towards the end of the first one. I haven't yet edited just the conversations. I'll get around to that hopefully this weekend and start to put them up. Again, I'm encouraging you, please consider joining or supporting me on Patreon. If I can get to a certain amount on Patreon, I can go down more than once a month and obviously record. And anybody who sponsors a certain amount can join in the live chat. At the moment, only Stops by virtue of him being, my co-host on Jinn&Tonic show. So if you want to join in, because, it's probably can be somewhat entertaining, maybe educationally, sitting there on a Sunday afternoon or depending where you are, morning or evening, and you can watch what's going on live in Speaker's Corner. And I have a facility now where I can do that for hours at a time and then just record all of those and you can see it live. So I'll pop it into the chat again and see. Somebody said to me, "Oh, Rob, you should keep advertising, Patreon." I went, "No, I don't want to keep doing it." He says, like the atheist experience, keep doing it and all that sort of stuff. And I was like, yeah, I don't want to keep doing it all the time, but it would be extremely helpful and allow me to get down there because I live so far away. TJ, welcome. You have come in. You've been very quiet there. If you are there, Harris has seen my post, so hopefully we will be joined by Harris Sultan very shortly. It might be that he's joining us at 9 o'clock. It might have been a slight miscommunication. I did think that he was going to join us at 8, but it could be that I've misinterpreted that. So good evening, TJ. If you are there, feel free to unmute yourself and say hi. If you've got any comments in the chat, then do let us know.
What's going on, guys? How you doing?
Yeah, all good. How are you?
Hanging in there. Thank God it's Friday.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, it's almost school holidays here in the UK, so that's all good. So somebody's saying the best camera in Speaker's Corner. Well, I appreciate that. I'm using a mobile phone with a stabilizer, so for the viewers, when I walk around, it's all very well. If you just went down to Speaker's Corner and you just recorded the conversation, the discussions, you could walk around, plonk your camera down, hold it still, or put it on a tripod. But when I'm doing a live stream, trying to handhold it is, very shaky, and so I'm using a stabilizer, handheld stabilizer, and that moves the phone around. And I've got a couple of mics on there and stuff like that. So I've done my best to try and make the equipment and the experience for the viewer a lot better. So appreciate your comment. Over to you, Stops. You were going to say something as well?
Oh, I've forgotten.
Okay.
Oh no! I wanted to ask TJ whether they still have TGIFs in Canada, in North America.
Oh, TGI Fridays, you mean?
Yeah.
That's a good question. I actually haven't been to one in quite some time. I think they might have closed down, actually.
So for people who don't know, what is that?
It's a chain. It's a restaurant chain where the people, the waiters, walked around with crazy outfits.
Apparently, it still exists, but I haven't been to one in ages. So.
And it was the in thing to do on a Friday. The whole office goes to TGIF.
Yeah. Now it's mostly, I don't know, Applebee's, Hooters, Wing House, places like that. Yeah,
The question is the food any good though? Or is it just the novelty of people wearing odd outfits?
Yeah, I mean, it was decent, but I prefer Hooters for obvious reasons.
Okay, please explain Hooters.
It's just a place where you can go, get some food and see skimpy outfits. What's wrong with
Because
that?
I've still got a couple of T-shirts because really I enjoy this.
Hey, no, guys will be guys, right?
I mean, I'm not into big boobs, but it's just so funny. I think the concept, it's so typical US American. It's so hypocritical. It's so sick. Everything is so politically correct. You're not allowed to talk about this, but everybody's banging everybody else, and then you go to Hooters to celebrate. I mean,
It's a good place.
Boy.
Had a lot of good memories there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So wait, since you're not a boobs man, I guess that you're more of an ass man.
No. I am a boobs person, but not these huge things. They need to quiver, not wobble.
Right. Right. Back to the topic of Islam. Well, I mean, I guess that is a kind of a topic in Islam in one way or another.
Come on, those boobs are mentioned everywhere in the Quran. Every single sentence is about the boobs of the houris.
Oh, right. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking with Harris Sultan. He's got 2 messenger services here, and he's sending me messages on different ones, and I'm sending him the link here. So hopefully he'll be with us now in a moment. Yeah.
Okay. Harris is somebody who's an ex-Muslim, and what happened is that Samir Abdullah had a discussion with an apologist, Nadia Ahmed, that I'm seeing tomorrow. He was a little bit underwhelmed. Then when Nadine said, well, we need to have a follow-up, he said, no, thank you. But then Harris jumped in and said, well, I've done this thing on embryology, so why don't I go and jump in and talk about it? And that's what happened. So Harris has started a YouTube channel, I think maybe 1.5 years ago or so, and has become very popular because of his very level-headed approach. There's nothing sensationalist. There's nothing, look at me, I'm the ex-Muslim, and now I need to shout about it. So he has found this niche where he is very rational and very level and very calm and things like that. And this is what I appreciate about him. And there we're talking of.
Speaking of, there he is. Good evening, Harris. How are you?
Hi guys, how are you?
Very good, very good. Nice to have you with us. Thank you so much. Tell everybody what time it is over there, please.
It's 6 a.m., but it feels like it's 2 a.m. because I came home pretty late. Probably about 3 a.m. I think I got home.
Because for you, Friday is no more, right?
Sorry?
Because for you, Friday is no more.
Yeah, well, that's correct. I mean, it's not a worshiping day for me. I mean, I worship a lot of other things on Friday nights.
I will agree. So we super appreciate you coming on. Thanks for coming on. I mean, 3 hours sleep is crazy.
My pleasure, guys.
I'm sure you'll still make plenty of sense. Stops was just singing your praises there. So welcome to the show, Harris. I saw you on the debate on on Abdullah Samir's channel. But please, if you would just share before we get started, share everybody a little bit of your story to whatever degree you're comfortable doing, so that everybody knows a little bit more about you, and then we can sort of get into having a chat.
Yeah, certainly. Well, it's definitely, thanks for inviting me on the channel. It's definitely my pleasure to be on. Well, my name is Harris Sultan. I am an ex-Muslim, as it's so cool to say these days. Apparently, it's the thing in fashion. So yeah, well, I've been an ex-Muslim. I think I'm probably one of the original ones. I guess I think Maryam Namazi is probably the one who made this term popular. And I remember being, I remember first time seeing her in 2007 or 2008 on some British talk show. And I thought, oh, this woman is cool. I mean, she ex-Muslim, right? That kind of sounds good. So anyway, so I've been an atheist for, I'd say probably around about 10, 11, maybe 12 years. As you never really remember the exact day when you let go of your imaginary friend. I now, when I mean, so many people who convert now, maybe partly because of my work and partly mostly because of their own intuition. I think the kind of work that I do is obviously, I keep talking about Islam. I keep talking about the bad ideas of Islam, how these things are so bad, or how they don't make sense, whether that's philosophically or the obvious scientific errors in the Qur'an, and basically just and obviously the third being the morality being in Islam, being so horrible. So those three things were pretty much the things that pushed me over the edge. So that's what I focus on as well. So I keep talking about that. I have a Facebook following. I think I've got somewhere around 16,000 followers, which might have been halved now because last week, or probably the week even before that, I got banned in Pakistan. So the great Islamic Republic of Pakistan felt so threatened by a little man like myself that they had to officially request Facebook to ban my page. So we're still working, trying a way around it. Someone told me that it worked with a VPN, but we're not 100% sure. So yeah, so that's the kind of
badge of honor, though, isn't it? I mean, to be banned from a country, that's definitely a badge of honor. I kind
of felt cool in the first hour or so. And then when I looked at the number of, like, the exposure, how many people my message was reaching out to, was kind of reduced a lot. So I thought, that's probably because a lot of people in Pakistan are not seeing my message. I think 35 to 40% of my following was in Pakistan.
Wow.
So yeah, so it is a bit of a disappointment.
You're not the only one, though.
Yeah, no, Abdullah's Gondal's profile was somewhat blocked in.
No, come on, Titans TV is blocked in Pakistan now.
Right. Okay. Yeah. There you go. So yeah, I mean, I guess it is kind of badge of honor because, like, I mean, you're now hanging out with the big boys.
Unfortunately,
delinquents.
Yeah. Crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. So anyway, so that's the kind of work I do. I mean, personally, I left Islam about 11, 12 years ago. I mean, I was I always had the ideas that didn't sit well with me. My family is quite moderately Muslim. They're just more so these mystical, Sufistic, spiritual kind of Muslims. They don't, well, what I like to call the classic hypocrite Muslims. Which is exactly what makes them good humans. I mean, a better Muslim you are, worse of a human you are, and vice versa. So these people believe in the spiritual aspect of it. I mean, my mum does 5 sit-ups a day. She fasts 30 days. So she does all of those things, but she doesn't believe in homosexuality being abomination, or She just said, don't talk about it. Each to their own. Let them do whatever they want to do. Okay, well, mum, but that's against your religion. No, she doesn't want to talk about it. Should thieves' hands be chopped off? No, that's barbaric. No. I tell her, your son, myself, I'm an adulterer practically, because I've been a fornicator, I'd say, probably. I've been living with my partner for, it'll be 11 years in December, and we've obviously never married. We refuse to get married because it's a religious practice. So these things are all okay with my mother, but probably more so with father as well. But even if they're not, but he never says anything to me. But these guys are, just spiritually Muslim, and they think this is what Islam is all about: is being good, being kind to other people. But we know, the more you study Islam, and most Muslims don't study Islam, and they have no freaking idea about the hadiths, or the horrible hadiths, or the bad Quranic verses. They have no idea about that. So anyway, so I didn't want to follow something blindly, and I did try for earlier part of my mid-teens. I kind of became very strict. I was probably the most strict Muslim. I think that phase only lasted about a couple of years. Like, I would pray 5 times a day. I'll go to mosque every opportunity I would get. I would read Qur'an in Arabic and all that. So, but yeah, it just didn't sit well with me, which is exactly what I try to do now, is just plant a little seed of doubt somewhere. But it is absolutely useless if the other side is not willing to open up. I mean, all the people I've converted, when I communicate with them afterwards, they all tell me, like, I mean, I always think that probably my credit would only be like 4 or 5%, because I try every day with these hardline, brainwashed, these zombies, literally, and they don't want to open up to anything, no matter what evidence or no matter what type of how you approach this whole concept of God. If they're not willing to open up, nothing will work. So, and which was the case in my case as well, that I think I was always at the back of my mind. I always thought it just doesn't make sense. And then I just didn't have the counter arguments. I mean, you got to remember that this was happening in the late 90s. Internet was in its infancy. I mean, there was no Facebook, definitely. Google and Yahoo, Alta Vista, all these search engines were quite new, and you couldn't find as much material as you can. So I think I came across Richard Dawkins some part in the early noughts. At first I found him, what a hellbound old fool. And then now I look back and I say, well, Richard Dawkins was very polite, for that matter. Like, I mean, especially now, the level at which we have taken the criticism of religion, I mean, it's borderline. It's just literally, it could not be fathomed back in my time. How can you talk about this?
Let me ask you something. Yeah. One of the things you said is that you read it in Arabic. So are you fluent in Arabic? You can read the Quran or have read it in Arabic?
I have read the Quran in Arabic. It's a standard practice where every child reads Quran in Arabic. I can't read anything now. Like, I mean, I can a little bit, but I would make a fool of me. I can't even recite. I mean, someone would say that I'm actually lying to a point, but you got to again remember, because this is like almost like I stopped praying around 15, 16 years ago, maybe more, maybe 17 years ago. So there are very few verses from the prayer that I actually remember, like Qul Allahu Ahad Allahu Samad being the only one that I think I remember, because it's really short. But there's so many others that I just can't remember because I just haven't read them. Same with Quran. I think Quran I stopped, I think when I was 16 maybe, or 15.
But can you actually, when you see the Arabic verses either on Quranics or in a Quran, can you make out what it's saying, or do you need to now go to the English translation to be clear on it?
Oh, no, I always had to go to the translation. Okay. So that's what I'm saying. So we could read it. We are taught how to read it, how to recite it, but we don't know Arabic language. So no, this is another huge dilemma. in Pakistan, I mean, especially Southeast Asian countries, that they teach you, and it's virtue to recite Quran every day. It's not virtue to understand Quran, and I can understand now why they emphasize on that, because more people would understand it. More would be like, "What the fuck is this shit? Like, what are you talking about?" So yeah, that's how it doesn't work. And so no, we could never understand Arabic. I could never. Yeah, I would never have known what Quran is talking about.
It's the standard. They teach you what to think and not how to think.
Okay.
Harris,
Exactly.
Is there one thing
how much time do you spend today
you always say
being
that.
anti-Muslim? Or let's say, no, this was a totally wrong question.
That
How
is,
much time do you spend at the moment thinking about Islam and your former time as a Muslim where you were not allowed to think like that? Because I find that I'm spending maybe 3 hours a week thinking about Islam. So it's not, a high priority for me. What about you?
Yeah.
Is Islam still a priority for you the way that it was when you were a Muslim?
See, that's a difficult one. I mean, I understand the frustration of Muslims when they say, "Well, you've left Islam, so leave us alone. Just don't criticize our beautiful religion."
Exactly.
I can't put a number to it. Like, I mean, obviously, I have two more admins who help me run the page. I very rarely. I think I would put probably one post a day, but I won't say that I think about it all the time. For example, last night I wasn't thinking about it.
So it's not an obsession.
No, of course not. It is an interesting thing for me, where I think it's important. I mean, I do see the importance of it, and Muslims have brought it upon themselves. And more they keep acting like little babies, more of people like me are going to keep coming forward. As I said, like, I've been an atheist for 11, 12 years. I stopped practicing Islam to the core where that I used to probably 15 years ago. But I never spoke about it publicly. But it's this babyish behavior, this arresting people and flogging people like Raif Badawi, or arresting people like Ayaz Nizami, or acting like mindless animals, and butchering people like Mashal Khan. These are the things that pissed me off and tipped me over the edge. So that's why people like, well, at least in my case, I can only speak for myself, that I came forward, and now I've run into this problem, and I've realized, whoa, it wasn't just one Mashal Khan or Ayaz Nizami. There are potentially thousands of Mashal Khans out there. If we don't raise it to a level where it becomes embarrassing for Muslims to defend what happened to Ayaz Nizami or to Mashal Khan. So the only way to avoid that from happening again is talking more and more about it. And more we talk about it, more Muslims are going to feel embarrassed, and then they're going to say, okay, we have to change something about it. And you can already see that. I don't think it would... I don't think Danish cartoons would attract the same kind of reaction if it happened today. And maybe if it does happen, well, obviously, like, some idiots will do it anyway. But a lot of these moderate Muslims, they will keep coming forward and say, okay, well, they don't represent Islam. I have to tell you something. Like, I can see that within myself. So when September 11 happened, now, so to answer your question, like, I don't think about it all the time, but I do think about it quite a lot, because it's important, and for the reasons I just explained why. But and I think it's important because I was in Pakistan when September 11 happened, and I kind of feel embarrassed that I was in a culture where the whole of 90s we grew up hating America. for whatever reasons. I mean, Pakistan had their own reasons, but this Palestine issue was always ingrained in our psyche that Israel is the enemy and America is backing it. So anyway, so when September 11 happened, a lot of people danced in the streets, and I noticed that how so many people, like prominent Muslims, would say, no, nobody danced, etc. Yeah, there were few people, they showed in Palestine who were dancing, etc. No, in my own city, Lahore, which is a very modest city in terms of religionism or religiosity, especially back then, it wasn't very religious. And I was like, I was kind of like, because how old was I? I was probably 16, I think, at that time, 17. And I thought, oh, okay, it must be a good thing. And I kind of felt good as well. That, I mean, somebody finally got America. And obviously, I look back and I feel incredibly embarrassed about it. But I've seen since then, my point was, like, I've seen since then, nobody was openly condemning what happened in America, or everyone had sympathies for Osama bin Laden. But now so much terrorism has happened, so much condemnation has happened, so many bombings or retaliations from the West has happened. Now Muslims have actually, majority of the Muslims have decided, obviously leave out Taliban and ISIS and all these kind of nut jobs, but majority of moderate Muslims and above have decided that no, that's not how we're going to react, and they have started condemning the acts of terrorism. And I think same way it is happening with the attitude towards Islam, what can and what cannot be said about Islam. More we keep criticizing Islam and keep treating it like an ideology, I think more and more people will start saying, well, I don't agree with you, but sure, you can say whatever you want. I'm already witnessing now within Muslim community. It's okay. Yeah, you're an atheist, fine. I mean, 20 years ago, no, you're an atheist, die, bastard. That's what they would say. So it's already changed.
Are you saying that Muslims are secretly embarrassed, that they are secretly feeling guilty for what has happened, that they do feel the pressure on Islam and they do feel that they are sort of somehow part of it?
Well, they feel embarrassed about anything
Secretly.
that causes.
Secretly.
No. I mean, it's not like a worldwide secret that like it's being guarded by two men in the suits, black suit. It's obvious. Like when you see hardliners, like for example, let's just say Asadullah, right? I mean, Asadullah pretends a lot, and he's a hardliner. He calls himself a fundamentalist Muslim, and then you have hundreds of scholars, like you can Yasir Qadhi's one, Shabir Ali's one. You can see these people where they say, okay, it's okay for you to criticize Islam. I mean, they have opened up this avenue that it's okay for you to criticize Islam, but just don't mock us. So this has become a standard line. I'm telling you, 20 years ago, you could not say that it's okay to criticize Islam. What you see on CNN, on this, or the most of the ass-kissing leftist media, that this is a beautiful religion, it's a religion of peace. I mean, when you look at the speech of George Bush when he did the 180-degree turn, and he said, well, Islam is a beautiful religion, it's a religion of peace, and all that bullshit, when he talked about it, it's like he had obviously no idea what he was talking about. But that was the line that was being fed to the world, that okay, well, we have to act somehow very tolerant. So that's how it used to be. But now more and more ex-Muslims are coming in, and I think it has to be done by the brown people like us, like ex-Muslims. White people are only going to get called racist. I mean, it's a terrible, it's difficult job for them. So they can come out in moral support. But yeah, Muslims are somewhat embarrassed if you talk to them that, oh, you mindless animals, you do. If we let you run the world, then you do what happened to Mashal Khan, or you arrest people for simply criticizing or even questioning religion. For example, Ayaz Nizami, perfect example. He's the main motivation for me to open my page, because he's roughly around my age. He wasn't insulting towards Islam. He was just questioning ideas. He was questioning atheism and questioning Islam, and he got arrested, right? He wasn't drawing cartoons of Muhammad, or he wasn't calling him pedophile or anything else. He was academically questioning Islam. So that's what happens if we let you run amok. So if we keep bringing it up, so yeah, Muslims feel embarrassed about it, and that's why they've changed the line that it's okay for you to criticize, but don't mock us, don't be insulting. So mockery is another part of criticizing. So more of that happens, obviously within reason. I mean, I don't like to use a pedophile word for Muhammad, for instance.
But why not? If the claim is that Muhammad is, you know, an example for all times for. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, you are dropping off again. The question is, why not?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't think it serves a purpose. I mean, we can for a pedophile. I think someone is a pedophile who actually does sleep with children. I mean,
it's a preference.
Yeah, well, he has a preference of little children. Well, Muhammad had what, I don't know, 68 other wives or something. They were not. I mean, only Aisha's age was very young. So
no. There were quite a few.
Yeah, but there were not. No one was around the age of 9 or 10 or 11 or 12.
No. Like Sophia was like 17 or something. Another one was also around that age. Maria was so young.
Yeah, I'm well aware of that. So that is always classified, even by today's standards. 17 or 16 would be classified as an adult or a legitimate age for marriage.
But he was 60.
Yeah, that's. Well, yeah, you have Hugh Hefner, the 7th century Hugh Hefner. No, but Aisha's case, I mean, you have to. I mean, we can't play on both sides. I mean, if you're gonna criticize him, and rightfully so, you should criticize him for marrying or sleeping with a 9-year-old girl. But we cannot put that in the same bracket as sleeping with a 16-year-old girl. So that would not be akin to pedophilia.
Okay, if you say that is not conducive, what would you say? Because I love your approach. I love what you are saying because you have this experience, this hands-on, as it were, experience of what happens to the people when you confront them with certain things. What would you say is the best way of making Muslims today feel embarrassed? Is it ridiculing? Is it facts? Is it pointing out things?
Well, no, facts are always the best tool. Like, I mean, facts are number one. I mean, I can't say that I always, just rely on facts, because you and we all know that Muslims are beautiful. Like, they have biologically evolved to deny facts or to ignore facts. Just somehow it works in their psyche. So I do somehow end up trolling them, like by embarrassing them, like my friend Barak, the flying horse. I mean, you would see that in the certain Muslims. I always bring that up with the flying horse, the end of splitting the moon. They cannot get away with it. But bringing up facts like, okay, well, Muhammad married a 9-year-old girl. That is every Muslim who can read or write in English, who can use a computer, who's literate to some extent. He just cringes just a little bit at that, and they don't want to talk about it, which is why you witness so many of these this amazing display of mental gymnastics from these Muslims, because they know that it is embarrassing. That's why they come up with, oh, she was probably 18. No, it was okay back then. So they try to justify it, but they know in their minds that it is never okay for a fully grown old man to sleep with a 9-year-old girl. I mean, even if it was 12 or 13, they could make the case that, back in those days, girls used to physically mature a lot earlier than today. Again, it's bullshit. But 12, 13 might have worked, but 9 just doesn't work. I mean, I told this to my uncle, and I can't remember what side. Okay. So afterwards, he started saying, "No, she was 18, not 9." His daughter was 9 years old at that time, and she was barely 3.5 foot, 4 feet, maybe 4 foot tall, maybe. And I said, well, this is the age when if a 60-year-old man comes to your house and says, give me this daughter of yours, would you give him that? Of course he would say no. And now, so okay, well, even if Muhammad came and he said, well, give me your daughter, I want to marry her, this is Allah's will, what would you think? And when people put that into perspective, that's when they do. Then they're never going to admit to you. Like, as I said, they have gone past facts. They have gone past rationality and reason and common sense. They've gone past it. So they would not. They would then come around with a different bullshit. They were like, for example, my uncle, for instance, started believing after that, no, she was not 9. This is how their mind works. Well, we know that Allah is the creator of billions of galaxies, and we know that Muhammad is the greatest man who ever lived. So if he's the greatest man who ever lived, he would not have done that thing. So that's how that hadith, or whatever knowledge we have of Aisha being 9, is false. But some people, it works for them, and this, I mean, it's a huge burden off your shoulders. You don't have to do all this gymnastics, and you don't have to lie to yourself just to keep holding on to your fairy tales. And that's why I find it extremely liberating. And I think those people, that's why a lot of people let go of it. And it does work. So I think that's my approach. Instead of calling him pedophile using that loaded term. And I also don't think, I think for him to be a pedophile, he must have had a lot of other child brides. Because, I mean, we know all the pedophiles, they're repetitive. And that is their... that's how they sexually operate. So I think he must, like, if he was a chronic pedophile, then or you know, like if he was diagnosed as with pedophilia, then he must have had a lot more 9-10-year-old girls. That's my view. So I don't think he was even a pedophile. I think there's another theory behind it, that why he went with Aisha. I personally have a theory on that too. So he was married to Khadija for a very long time, and then some say, well, Sauda was the second wife, or Aisha was the second wife. So the historians can't work out exactly what was the order, but they were very close to each other. So if you go by, okay, well, Khadija was an older woman. She was older than Muhammad, so maybe he was just sick of it. He said, well, you know what? Fuck this. I'm now I'm gonna get a really young virgin girl, and then he just went to really extreme, to another extreme. Like Khadija was 13, 15, 14 years older than him. He obviously was poor when he was married to Khadija. He couldn't even afford to marry her. He was basically a nobody while she was alive. And by the sounds of it, because he didn't look around, he didn't do anything while Khadija was alive, she probably had him by the balls. And so when she died, he's like, yeah, now it's my time to party. And he was gaining influence by that time. So I think that's probably why he went, like, he wanted a pure girl, he wanted a virgin girl. But again, if you look at his other, rest of his wives, he probably didn't care too much about virgins, so to speak. Like, I mean, I know this culture of these patriarchal societies where there's a culture of, oh, I have to get a virgin girl. Like, there's an obsession with that, especially in Pakistan as well. She has to be virgin. Muhammad didn't seem to be too bothered about that. So maybe that's why he just wanted one virgin. So I don't know. It's just bizarre that. So that's why I wouldn't use that term.
But he says in a hadith, so he says, why do you want to marry an old one? Why not marry a young one which you can fondle and things like that? So
yeah. That's right. I mean, see, Muhammad was just an ordinary man where he made up shit as he went along. I mean, as you mentioned that hadith, yeah, you're right. I mean, he's telling this guy that, why are you marrying an older woman, like, who's already been banged so many times? Basically, that's what he's saying. I mean, he's saying that, okay, the young virgin girls are more enjoyable. But if Muhammad was to take his own advice, then why is he marrying all these women who have already been married, or who have already been?
You mean his own daughter-in-law?
Well, yeah, with daughter-in-law, he could have had her himself. He didn't have her at that point, and then probably he took a liking afterwards. Yeah, but again, see, that's the thing. Like, I mean, he didn't go after the virgins, so to speak. Aisha probably is the only one, and maybe Umar, his third wife. Not Sauda, the one after.
Absolutely, the only one of that age. Absolutely, yeah. Okay. So
yeah, so that's why I didn't use that.
What do you think? Okay, is there anything else that would embarrass people? So you say facts, and there are things about Muhammad's personal life where, okay, have you come across this thing where in the Quran the men are being allowed to have sex with slaves even if they are married?
Oh well, yeah, that's chapter 4, verse 24. That's
Right. Yeah.
Sex slaves is another one I use quite a lot. So when you target Islam now, this is why a lot of Quranists are coming out, because Hadith is just getting too much heavier for Muslims to defend. There's just too much bullshit in Hadith, and they just cannot defend anymore. Like, you know, the camel urine and all that other kind of embarrassing Hadiths. So you got to work out. First, you start with Quran alone. So you start with the embarrassing things in Quran. Obviously, wife beating being one. For women, every time I communicate with women, I recently stopped an Australian woman from converting to Islam. Again, I don't understand these people, right? Her boyfriend is a Pakistani, and he's obviously lured her to beautiful side of Islam and all that. It's a beautiful religion and all that. And then she's a white Australian. I told her, I said, do you know he can beat you? And then it's again, like, I mean, white people, like, I mean, the people who've grown up as Christians, they don't fully understand the idea or the major difference between Islam and Christianity. They think, well, Quran is also just a book which has been influenced by people, but they don't understand it's actually the literal word, according to the claims of Muslims. You have to believe, it's a part of your belief that it's the literal word of God, and every word in it is spoken or uttered by this creator of billions of galaxies. So if it says that you can beat up your wife, then it's not a Muslim saying that. It's your Allah that you worship is saying that. So he can beat you up. No, but he would never beat me up. No, that's not the point, right? The point is he's allowed to do that, which shows that this is a patriarchal religion. You know, he can actually have sex slaves, but we don't have slavery anymore. Well, no shit, we don't have slavery anymore. Thanks to people, not thanks to your Allah. And I said, well, I bet you he didn't tell you about these things. And yeah, well, she didn't know about these things, and but she last I checked, I think she's still gonna go to Pakistan, but I think she's very skeptical of Islam. So again, but my point was, so just stick to, like, I mean, different approaches work on different people. I mean, if you just start with Quran itself, there's enough to criticize Muslims, and then you have to speak with really hardcore Muslims. Then you can throw in hadiths as well, and then becomes totally almost impossible for them not to get embarrassed. I mean, just bring up camel urine randomly. Just bring it up. Like, tell us what medicinal qualities does camel urine have? They would have nothing. They would just quote some bullshit scientific paper, which is. There's no So they would do all of that.
I pulled exactly this on. I don't know if you know Dawa Man. This is
okay.
Frog.
He's too easy to be destroyed.
But he came out with this video where he says, "Well, atheists have no morality, so they can drink their father's semen or something like this, or father's sperm or whatever." And I said, well, actually, I would prefer to drink my father's sperm than camel urine. And I found a video clip of a guy actually putting his glass underneath a camel and then drinking this shit.
So the Dharma man drank camel urine?
Did he what?
Did he drink camel urine?
No. I found a video of some guy in the desert putting a cup underneath the camel. And I said, you are mocking atheists for drinking sperm or semen, but he doesn't know
they don't even do that.
do that. And then somebody did exactly that. He went in the comments and said, yeah, but there's a study which says that camel urine has anti-inflammatory.
Yeah, yeah.
It's so funny, but they're embarrassed. You're right.
That's disgusting. I mean, and we notice the same behavior from those hardcore Hindus who say cow urine has all these medicinal qualities. So there's you can see the parallels very quickly. So in terms of my approach,
with you, kangaroo piss?
Well, yeah, I mean, lucky Aborigines didn't come up with that kind of bullshit. Otherwise, yeah, there might have been something in kangaroo piss.
Started your religion.
yeah. Well, Aboriginals had their own very interesting religion. Well, they're very they're interesting, but yeah. Anyway, so with the So what I do is the embarrassing people, Muslims, obviously, you have to bring up these embarrassing things, the morality, and now I think science, bad science in Islam itself, like Earth, sun going around the Earth. They would go all types of gymnastics, and they would say, "Well, no, that's not what it says." I mean, I don't know if you watched another kind of debate. It's pretty much the same thing where it says, show me where it exactly says the sun goes around the Earth. But it's talking about day and night, and it's talking about the orbit of moon and sun. What else? What would an orbit of sun have anything to do with day and night? I mean, they cannot answer it. What would it have to do? I mean, Qur'an is poetic. So Muhammad tried to be very mysterious, and he spoke in riddles. And it's a pretty bad poetry job. I mean, I can't say too much about it, but like, I mean, if you look at the standard poetry, you see whether the words rhyme or not, whether the length of the first verse is the same as the second verse or not, and the end of the first verse rhymes with the end of the second verse or not. If you look at Quran that way, I don't know, it doesn't sound that impressive. But sure, I mean, I can't speak Arabic, so I'm not going to go into it. But so that's why, I mean, Quran can be so vague sometimes, but it makes absolutely no sense. So this is why we go to tafsirs, and tafsirs tell us what Quran actually meant by it. So if first 400 or 500 years of Muslim scholars taught that this is what Quran meant, who are you to tell me today that, oh, that's not what Quran meant? So you knew more about classical Arabic than people like Ibn Abbas or Ibn Kathir or Al-Jalalain kind of people. So yeah, I mean, talk about the bullshits in the Quran, and then maybe you go to Hadith. I mean, Hadith is just a treasure trove for everyone.
Yeah,
to embarrass.
Well, I changed my approach because I used to do a lot of fact checking. Went to the scholars and in the end, I gave up and I said, no, let me do it the other way around. Let me start exactly what you were doing. So let me start with the Quran. And the moment I ridicule or at least get them embarrassed about the Quran itself, I don't have to do any of the other checking.
You're correct. Yeah, you don't have to.
That in itself, there's so much material there that you can debunk and refute and make it. You don't need the rest.
Exactly. Well, and this is another reason why I didn't go too much into post-Muhammad's death history. I mean, I'm still curious about it, like just for my own interest. Like I want to learn more about Umar's life and Uthman's life and Ali's life. This is even more embarrassing for Muslims because they have extended blasphemy to the first four caliphs as well, especially in Pakistan. You can't, in Saudi Arabia as well. I mean, you have to respect the first four caliphs. After that, yeah, you can talk. But these first four caliphs, barring Abu Bakr, I think, Abu Bakr would have been just as nasty as any other 7th century man would be. But barring Abu Bakr, Umar was a dick, Uthman was corrupt, and Ali was a very brutal man himself. So I mean, if you read more into that as well, then you can find more bullshit or more absurd things in Islam. They all got basically assassinated, all three of them. So I mean, it just says a lot about the peaceful nature of Islam. The first four caliphs, the three out of the first four got assassinated. How peaceful was it, this religion of peace? So, but my point is, but then Muslims can turn around and say, and we can already see, as I said, like a lot of people are dropping the idea of following Hadith and and the biography of Muhammad and just going to the Quran, and we can target Quran itself. So if you can target Quran, you've targeted Quranists, you have targeted pretty much every Muslim out there.
Oh, Sunni, Shias, the Sufis, everybody, yeah.
Everyone's gone because they all believe in Quran.
Yeah.
So you don't have to go into Hadith. Okay, well, our tradition, Shia Hadith, is not that Aisha was 9 and all that. So
there's a heated debate in the chat at the moment about what your performance was regarding debates. How much did you actually care about debating people? Do you have a lot of debates under your belt, or is this something that you sort of look at casually?
I do look at it casually. Well, if someone asks me to do a debate, I'll do it. If there's a topic I feel quite comfortably about, quite comfortable in representing my views, I'll do it. So I think Nadir wanted. He's been asking Samir for debates, etc. And Samir asked me if I would be interested in doing that. I said, well, I'll do it. And I think Nadir, there was confusion of what date it's got. It was initially decided almost a month ago. So like I had the original hype in June that, okay, let's do this. And then it got pushed out and out and out. No, I'm not blaming Nadir for it. I think one of the week was actually our own misunderstanding. I thought it was, okay, next Sunday, but it wasn't next Sunday, but he meant the one after, or 2 after, something like that. So I think it got pushed back by, like, it was decided sometime in June and then being pushed out 8th of July or something. So I kind of lost interest in that. I mean, I had prepared my slideshow in June. But I've learned something from it, how important the format has to be, or how important the topics specifically have to be. Because I think that Nadir now, because Nadir's got a lot more experience in debates, I think I now see why he did what he did about 2-minute window. I mean, I want to have an honest conversation. So I mean, like we're having right now.
That's the whole point, exactly. Yeah.
So you can interrupt me anytime you want. If I say something that is outrageous or it doesn't make sense, you can cut me off and you can say, Harry, what do you mean by that? And then I'll say that, and then it still doesn't make sense. So we can have back and forth.
It's a dialogue.
Instead of making it some sort of a performance where, okay, that's 2 minutes, and that's it. Now my turn. And sometimes you can't get the point across within 2 minutes, and then it becomes a rebuttal. In a proper debate, you actually don't even rebut that many times. You give opening statement, then you give your first point, they give first point, and then they rebut twice, I think, and then they go towards the closing statements and then questions, etc. I mean, these are standard debate platforms, but this was different. It was originally meant to be only 40 minutes. So I was kind of disappointed by Nadir tactics, especially at the end. I think half of the debate, I think first half of my performance was, I think, quite, it wasn't as good because, and I read the comments afterwards where people were disappointed that I didn't bring up as many points as I should have, or at least all these points were in my slideshow. Like they were saying, we should have brought up why these Keith Moore and co did not convert to Islam, or where did it come from? Like Galen, bringing Galen in there, or all these other things. So I think that's where they were disappointed. But I think I had a very good point that we were talking specifically about the scientific inaccuracy of this verse. Like, where did Muhammad get it? That's a secondary question. Keith Moore, we could question it, but I think I had shot him down pretty early on, and Nadir didn't press on that matter. But then we got caught up on this part, which is in clear contradiction. But then it was a godsend, and that's where I got frustrated with a lot of people that Nadir made a huge blunder. How many times have you witnessed a debate where your opponent or where a debater brings a reference that contradicts his own position?
Oh, a lot.
Okay, there you go. So when
because
that
they don't
happens,
understand it. Like Subur, I've quoted Subur so many times because he doesn't even understand himself what he is quoting. This is the problem. And he's the opposite of what he wants to say. But you need to understand it, and you can see they don't.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah. So okay, with that, okay, well, in that case, fair enough. Maybe, and I know that. I know that Nadir didn't understand. I mean, it was so simple what I was saying. It was so simple that I'm saying, well, your quote is saying bones to flesh, but Quran is saying flesh to bones. He's like, what? And it's so simple. I had to say it over and over again. And I think at some point he did understand what I was saying. And then that's when he shifted the goalpost. He said, okay, well, show me, instead of admitting, okay, either my source is wrong or Quran is wrong, instead of admitting that, he said, okay, well, let's talk about your position that bones and flesh form simultaneously. So I knew that no matter which scientist I quote, he's not going to accept it, and that's exactly what he did. He said, "Well, this guy's saying that on some message board. What? As if that is meant to lose. Excuse me. As if that's meant to lose any value. Like, I mean, if Einstein was alive today and somebody asked him a question about relativity and he answered it on the message board, would you say, ha ha ha, that's just a message board?
Yeah.
No, you would not. You'll take it. I mean, the actual scientific jargon is so complicated. So, and I still don't doubt the reference that Nadir used would be from a legitimate.
No, it's not
scientific paper. No, it's not.
No.
Oh, okay.
It's a lifestyle magazine. It's a fashion magazine.
Right. Okay. No. But was it written by a scientist or not?
Yeah. The way that it works is he's a dumbass. Okay. Number one, he quoted a lifestyle magazine, which gives you fashion tips and diet tips and what your body needs to look good in bikinis and things like that. But they
how fasting is good for your body and all that.
From a scientific site.
Yeah.
So the quote itself was correct, and this is the problem.
That's what I was saying.
He did not understand what this was saying, and that this was actually saying the opposite of what he was trying to bring across.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what I'm saying. So that's what. So whatever the quote was, I don't doubt its scientific integrity, but I know that. Exactly. But I know that would have been too specific, and it must have been taken out of context because there's so many others that I've looked at. I mean, the argument, the scientific position is very simple on that. I mean, it says that the bones and flesh and muscle and tissue, everything derives from mesoderm cells. And that shows up very early on in the embryology, in an embryo, all types of mammalian embryos. And as a result, as mesoderm cells get bigger or evolve within the embryonic stage, cartilage and tissue starts appearing simultaneously. So when you actually look at the actual embryonic paper, like I have one of the followers who is a doctor, and she's specializing in embryology. She sent me a textbook. I think I posted that. I don't know if you've seen it. So she highlighted the paragraph to me that said exactly the same thing. So, well, actually, I didn't understand that because there was too much scientific jargon in that. And that was my point. We don't understand, especially with biology, this biological jargon. With normal people, we don't understand that. So what is the solution to that? We can ask a doctor or an embryologist, what does this mean? And he's going to tell you, well, this means bones and flesh form simultaneously. Waha, that's it, job done, right? So I mean, and there's this huge paragraph, 7 or 8 lines, full of medical jargon, and it went right over my head. And I'm sure it would have flown right over Nadir's head as well. And Nadir would have said, "Show me where it says that it's the bones never come before flesh." I mean, and that's another bullshit that he was trying to say.
I'm going to finish this for good tomorrow. So, and I'm using it.
Well, do ask him whether the reference that he quoted, whether that's wrong or Quran is wrong, because Quran is very clear. Yeah. The flesh, the clot, turns into a lump. All the classical tafsirs refer that lump as a piece of flesh. I did my homework.
Chewed flesh.
Sorry?
chewed flesh.
No, not really. I mean, this mugda. I think that's the word mugda. That means chewed in some
Exactly.
translations, but
Yeah,
not.
but this is what they always do. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because
but yeah,
they
okay.
pretend
Yeah, whatever.
like the somites are part of the skeleton, but they're not.
Yeah. Well, chewed or no chewed. I mean, and that's another bullshit. I mean, that's again like. I mean, I think I handled it. I think Nadir was quite defensive earlier.
Yes,
Like
you did, but he didn't understand it, and then he is so slick that he manages to turn it around. This is the problem.
Yeah, well, that's. I mean, that's his intellectual dishonesty. But my point is again, I did not even let him go to this other bullshit that okay, well, it's a chewed substance like a chewing gum. I showed the picture. I didn't let him get away with he only said it once. Oh, look, alaka means a lot of things. It means leech as well. I said no, it doesn't. It doesn't mean leech anywhere. And also, human embryo at no stage looks like a leech. I showed that. I said you've straightened the embryo to make it look like a leech. Yeah. You've removed the heart. You've straightened it.
It's a drawing.
Yeah, it's a drawing.
And you find the same drawing everywhere.
Yeah, it's a drawing. And then all of a sudden the next one it shows, well, look, when it wants to show the vertebrates of it, to show the bone part, and they say, well, now human embryo has gone back to its original shape, like a curled up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I said, why are you not straightening it now to make it look like leech? It's only a week apart from each other. So that's intellectual. So he didn't even go around that, and I think him saying that, I mean, I can't do anything what he says. Like when he said, show me a verse or show me a scientific paper where it says bones never come before flesh or flesh. I mean, how does that work? I mean, that's literally saying that show me a scientific paper that says a lion is not a dog unless it shows. Unless it says that in a scientific paper, a lion could be a dog. But science doesn't tell you. I mean, but then what else is science? What else is going to say? Well, bones never come before flesh. Nails never come before flesh. Toes don't come before flesh. Lips don't come. Well, what else are you going to? You don't. That's not how it works, right? So you just say how things are, and then you work out how things are not. So that's how you work out that. Okay, well, there is, bones and flesh form simultaneously. Any other position, whether bones come before, flesh comes before, that's irrelevant.
But the thing is also, there's two things I would like to say to this. Number one, even if you personally did not bring all your points, even if you personally did not manage to get everything across the way that you wanted it, does not in any way mean that the Quran is right. Okay? That's number one. Number two, have you taken a liking to this? Are you going to do more of this? Because you're starting to learn and you look quite keen. You're getting very animated when you're talking about this, that, like you think, yeah, I've seen now that I do this and I could do better than this. Are you going to show us that you could do better?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to back down if someone asks me for a debate.
Brilliant.
So I did ask Asadullah for a debate.
Oh, come on, he's another idiot. I mean, this is
he's a massive idiot. But he thinks he's full
of himself.
Oh yeah, he's so full of himself. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Like he just I just say one word and then he makes, he sends his army of people to troll me. Not that matters to me. Like, I mean, he wrote this essay. I mean, I made a video after he called me.
I saw it, yes.
Yeah, so I made a little video just because I just wanted to have fun with this guy, because I know that if I could just make a comment that can just hurt his ego, and then
he's so easy to trigger.
Yeah, he's so easy to trigger. So I thought, I'll trigger it.
My name, when he saw my name in the chat.
Oh yes, that's correct. Yeah, I mean, he's just. I
think it's the condescending attitude, though. That he studied some philosophy. By the way, apparently one of my colleagues has looked it up. That university doesn't have a philosophy department, and some of the people that were checking his work were not philosophically trained either. So it's questionable to what degree that philosophical degree is worth anything. Because people get degrees all over the show. But be that as it may, I'm sure he's learned something in philosophy. But the condescending attitude, of course, and it was done on that show as well when he saw Stops was in the chat. doesn't do you any favors. I don't know how somebody can take that seriously, though. It's like, there's still a juvenile psychology running there, and he's not the only one.
Mm.
Oh yeah, well he acts like this spoiled brat. I'm sure his degrees are legit, or maybe not. Actually, that's a good point. I might actually look it up. I might trigger him a little bit more. So can you? Okay, well, whatever school he went to, just send me the details if it does have a department. I mean, I heard that it's somewhere in Malaysia or something. Is that where he
Yeah,
gets
yeah.
lost?
Remind me about it, and I will ask my colleague. We've got a small group of people who are like got a bit of expertise in different fields, and he's done the research already. So if you remind me in the chat, I'll get the details from my colleague and say, you can verify it yourself. But this particular gentleman is very thorough in looking up Muslim claims. So yeah.
Oh yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, if someone's already done.
In fact, what I'll do is I'll add you to that group. I'm sure you'll be a valuable addition. So I'll add you. It's only got 15 people in it. It's got people like Skydive Phil and a few other people that are quite well known. I'm probably the least knowledgeable in the group, which is great. I learn from everybody else in the group, so it's very useful. So I'll send you a link to that. By the way, before we forget about this, have you got a link that you can give us? I can put into the chat for your Facebook or any other social media that I can ask people to go and have a look at. So if you've got it, either you can post it in the chat with us here or in the main chat, and I'll set it up that it's a link so that people can go and have a look at all your Facebook pages and everywhere else that you'd like people to visit.
Yeah,
we've got something like 65 people on at the moment, so we'll put that out there to everybody.
Okay, yeah. Well, I can't see the general chat. I
just put it in the side chat here if you're on a laptop, and I'll post it into the main chat for you. Again,
okay, well, this is the Facebook.
Cool, got it. Yep, got that one. There we go. So we just posted it there. Go and have a look, guys. I'm posting the link from Harris into the main chat there.
And also would like people to check out my YouTube channel.
Yeah, give us that as well. So you obviously gave me where are we? Videos.com. Okay, so you've got your own address for that one. Cool.
Yeah, it's just like it redirects you to YouTube. Like I just set up the URL redirector, whatever that is, just so it's easier for people.
Perfect. That looks good. So what would you say then has been what's been the best dialogue you've had with a Muslim? Well, actually, before I ask you that question, step back one. Do you debate or do you discuss things almost entirely online, or do you have a place where you go face to face? Like here in the UK, the Speaker's Corner is sort of world famous for people going on a Sunday afternoon to have these, interactions. I often well, not often anymore, but I live stream it every so often. So do you have face to face discussions, or is it almost entirely online?
Well, interesting you say that. I mean, I do have I have been asked by a couple of universities here in Australia to debate a couple of Muslim apologists. So that might be happening in August. So that would be a proper debate where it would be in front of university students. I believe it might be in August. The dates still haven't been confirmed. So I still don't know whether that's going to go ahead or not. But I've been assured that that will be happening. So that would be quite interesting. I have not obviously done that before, but that was another part of my, it's kind of like an exercise to do it, to do a debate online and get some sort of experience. But I'd imagine I've debated in my college against on other topics, like where your opponent has a dice, you have a dice, and then you have people sitting at the front, and then you just present your views. So I've done that. I have that experience of that. So public speaking is not really that much of an issue for me. But I had never debated on Islam or any specific topic within religion because it's so volatile and emotional for so many people. So I'm sure that's what brings a different level of communication. So yeah, I'll be doing that. So I'm excited about that. So I'll be doing that, but online. Most of it now is just happening online.
Right. I mean, and have you got anything that's recorded where you go, okay, I felt like this was a good interaction with a Muslim, where they were as best as possible, they were intellectually as honest as they could be, and you felt that it was a useful discussion, because the Nadir one, because I focus on the tactics, and I noticed the tactics straight away, and so there was a lot of disingenuous responses to some of the things you were saying there, as if that's a winning argument. So I noticed the tactics quite a lot. But have you had any sort of dialogues where you felt like, yeah, this was pretty good. Okay, we disagreed entirely, but this would be educational for people to watch from a fact-based point of view?
Yeah, well, I've only had two, so to speak, debates. Not really in debate. Well, the other one was more of a conversation style with Rahmatullah Noraz. I mean, he's a nice guy, but I can't say. I mean, we have to see their intellectual honesty. But then, if they're being intellectually honest, then they're just being dumb if they cannot see the fallacies in there. So okay, so they're coherent with their views that okay, well, this can happen, and hence it did happen. So and they go with the same logic across the board. So that's intellectual honesty. But if they're applying it on in every scenario, then it looks like okay, well, that's very stupid of you to say that. So for example, Nadir wasn't clearly he was intellectually dishonest. Instead of once his own reference contradicted himself, he should have said, okay, well, either he should have taken a position that okay, well, my reference is wrong or Qur'an is wrong. He would never say Qur'an is wrong. So
No.
at least he should have said. But if he had said that okay, his reference was wrong, which obviously it's contradicting to his position, then he should have said, oh, okay, well, I think my reference is wrong. But then he would have looked like an even bigger idiot, right? That he's acknowledging himself that now because his source doesn't match with Quran, it's wrong. So that's his standard. So that's where you could see his intellectual dishonesty. But with this Rahmatullah guy that I spoke with, it was so he wasn't intellectually dishonest, I'd say, but he was. I don't know. I don't want to say anything. Like I don't want to use any terms for him. But I think his arguments were very silly, like embarrassingly silly, and so much so that I think that he realized. And I was actually I still thought this is how debates work, right? I mean, people say half the people say who agree with the original debater or one side, they say, well, he won, and the other half who agree with me who would say, well, Harris won. I mean, that's how debates work. So I never take who won seriously.
No.
So that's what I thought with Rahmatullah as well. I thought, his people are going to say he won, my people are going to say I won, whatever. It just doesn't matter. It's just the people in between who sit on the fence, they might say, okay, well, does that make sense or it doesn't make sense? So Rahmatullah I think his points were very silly. So, lack of a better term, like I really, he's a very nice guy. But as stupid as his points were, he was intellectually honest. I don't think it went anywhere either. And he didn't want to release that video because it was on his channel. He didn't want to release that video. So he actually removed it, he made it unpublic.
Really?
Yeah. So I thought that why are you doing this? I mean, I thought that you did okay, but he must have felt embarrassed. That's why he didn't want to put it up. So
maybe that's the thing for the future is, a condition of a debate is that you get a copy of the unedited, debate if it's not on your own channel, because if something like that happens, then you've got your copy of it.
Yeah. Well, yeah, no, that's correct. I have to do that. No, we actually did agree that we will do it. But he actually did write it in which when I looked at it later on, that if one of us don't agree to put it up, then that would be fine. I did see that he did actually say it. But anyway, he was nice enough to actually give me the video, so I did upload it. It is on my channel. So I think he was not a trickster. I think he was genuinely an honest yet delusional person. And he for obvious reasons, he doesn't want to have a conversation with me again, even though he said that he would. Like when we were having the conversation, he said, "Yeah, we'll definitely like to have a conversation again." But he doesn't want to have the conversation again. That's only about it. I think. Yeah. So I mean, it's still a work in progress.
So what would you say for people who are watching? What do you think is some of the stronger critiques against the Quran? So if you were coming in and you were wanting to have a discussion with a Muslim and show them, where you feel like the Quran is lacking, if we put it charitably, what do you suggest is sort of some of the stronger critiques?
Well, the scientific errors is the biggest one. I mean, you just cannot imagine the creator of billions and billions of galaxies who's created so much. Like, he must be beyond intelligence that we can even imagine the term intelligence. He cannot utter those lines of stupidity that we find in the Quran. So that's number one. That just every Muslim would agree with you as well, that Allah cannot say anything that is scientifically inaccurate. Where they do disagree with you is the interpretation of it. So, for instance, like embryology is like, it's an open and shut case. I mean, Keith Moore destroyed them, really. But then the vague verses, like, for example, sun going around the earth, the heliocentric, sorry, the heliocentric is, okay, the geocentric model that Quran proposes. It doesn't explicitly say, but there are 13 verses that all talk about day and night, or the shadow moving, and the mention, and then the next part of the verse mentions the orbit of the sun. The sun only has one orbit, which is around the Milky Way galaxy. It has absolutely nothing to do with the day and night. Any intellectually honest person can see that. But Muslims will turn around, like Zakir Naiks and all that. They will say, "Whoa, sun spinning around its axis. Well, that's a bit of an orbit, because there's a little bit of a wobble." So, like, it's a very little wobble. So they use that as an orbit as well.
Which surprisingly, of course, nobody knew until recently in science.
Yeah.
And it always changes. But you might, and you're right, if they're going to go with a scientific, then that's a very strong argument. But I notice now some of the quote unquote academics, in huge inverted commas, just deny that now. We've got people like Tortoise and many others like that going, no. They've obviously been rebutted so strongly now that they basically, and they've turned it around. It's interesting, they've turned it around and saying, no, don't try and use the Quran with science, because science is always changing. It's not as if the Quran is wrong. It can't be wrong. So science is always changing. So don't use science. I mean, that's obviously disingenuous, but at least it stops that sort of nonsense arguments. But that's what they're doing now.
Yeah, with that one, okay, well, it's because Hamza can't deal with the embarrassment that comes with it. That, as I said, like the Quran must have meant this tiny wobble of an orbit the sun has, instead of the orbit, which is more obvious that it must be orbiting around the earth, because that was a common view. So Hamza probably got sick of it. I mean, he also used to talk about science, and I don't know if you remember or if you ever watched. He did a debate with Pervez Hoodboy, who's a Pakistani physicist, a brilliant physicist. And he demolished him. Larry Krauss demolished him as well, when he said, "Well, you have no idea what you're talking about with physics.
Yes.
I mean, physics is complicated, right? I'm not going to freaking stand there and argue with him about the freaking, the cosmic rays and the Hawking radiation or whatever, or M theory. I'm not going to talk about it, right? Because I'm going to make a fool of myself." But these people think that they can take out certain lines from a theory, and then they can fit that in, and they can use that, mix it up with Quran, and they think that they can go with it. So that doesn't work that way. So that's how they go. So Hamza probably got sick of getting embarrassed by genuine scientists or people who are educated in science. So that's why he dropped the idea. But it's still disingenuous though, because he's saying that we, that we shouldn't use it. So he's only saying it as a tactic. He's not acknowledging that these verses are scientifically inaccurate. I mean, so he's not admitting that. I watched this whole lecture on that Samir sent it to me. So I said that makes his position even more muddied. Then what are you saying? Are you saying that there is no science in Quran, or the science in Quran is actually flawed? So I don't understand his position that well.
No, I think from my understanding, Stops can come in here, because actually Stops, interestingly, he can tell you a story about, he chatted to Krauss prior to that debate, so he's got a little bit of knowledge he could share with you. But it seems to me that they are basically saying, it's a book of signs, not science, and those claims are not to. You shouldn't be making claims against science, because, quote unquote, science is always changing. So where it contradicts the Quran, we shouldn't do anything, because the inference is that it will in time just match the Quran, because of course the Quran is timeless and absolute, and it's just us humans who are fallible, and science is the same way. So don't go do that. Just stop going with the science at all.
So basically he's saying that one day science is going to discover that it is actually the sun that goes around the earth. So basically that's what it's saying.
This is one. There are different ways of doing it. There are some people who are saying one day science is going to catch up with the Quran. What Sources is doing, he's saying, no. It's multi-layered. So the way that it's worded is ambiguous to the people in the 7th century. It starts making sense at some level to the people in the 15th. Now it's making sense to the people in the 21st. And then in 2,000 years, it's going to make sense to those people, because then the words will have a meaning that only those people will be able to understand. So
I've heard that. I've heard that argument, and I think I made a video on that. And I said, well, isn't that amazing that Allah finds multi-layered communication of verses or words when he has to answer some serious questions about the universe, something that is difficult to understand. Then he finds all these, ambiguity and this vagueness. But when it comes to how to treat with your fucking disobedient wife, it's pretty clear. Or who to fuck, it's pretty clear, right? I mean, the creator of billions of galaxies has no reason not to be vague in that regard. I mean, sex slaves, right? I mean, sex slaves is another one that I throw in quite a lot.
There are no slaves in the Quran. Didn't you know? They're all volunteers.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, this is... Okay, this apologetics that we get from the other side is just something like, okay, maybe, I mean, if I was a slave, I would prefer to be a male slave than a female slave, because I would not want to fuck a 60-year-old man.
And you also wouldn't want to be a slave from Africa, right? Because you'd get castrated, right?
Yeah, that's correct. So I would like to be, let's say I'm an Indian slave and I have a choice either to be a slave in the Roman Empire, and by Roman Empire I mean Rome of Caesar and Nero and Caligula in those days. Or actually, no, Caligula shouldn't be compared with Julius Caesar. Maybe Caesar and Augustus Caesar in that era, or the slave of Muhammad. But again, you have to be brown, so you have to look like Muhammad, and you have to be male. I think I would pick Muhammad in that sense, maybe because so that is okay. So that part of Muslims is justified, where they say, well, yeah, we have slavery, but it wasn't as bad as the slavery in Roman Empire. And
American slavery.
Yeah, or American slavery. I mean, I think Yasir Qadhi, I watched his lecture and saying that. He goes, when people talk about slavery, they think about this American slavery where black people are being whipped, where the bones are visible. But that's not how Islamic slavery was. Yeah, Islamic slavery was very nice. There are actually some hadiths where actually do say that, okay, where Muhammad encourages freeing of slaves. Muhammad does encourage give them good food and everything. But again, slave is a fucking slave, right? He's still your property at the end of the day. My point is, my point is, if fallible humans like the 17th or 18th century humans could come up with a system where slavery can be outlawed, why could this, immense, merciful being, how could he not come up with that? I mean, Abraham Lincoln, if he just solely, I know he's not solely responsible for abolishing of slavery, but let's just say he played a huge part in the abolishment of slavery. Abraham Lincoln seems to be a much better human than Muhammad, for instance. I mean, he single-handedly, or maybe, as I said, with some help from some other people, destroyed slavery. And but Muhammad couldn't do it. What's so special about
it's the test?
Yeah. Well, Muhammad failed in that test then.
Yeah, but the thing is, if you look at the Quran, okay, we're talking about an all-powerful, all-knowing God, okay, and this God is too stupid and too obtuse to actually understand that there is something wrong in the Quran, why doesn't he update it every 15th of July so that it represents the latest knowledge and actually gives us a little bit more that we can aspire to, a little bit of advanced knowledge that we can progress or something? No, it's always us finding out things that in the past it was said that today it makes sense. Why not do it the other way around? Why can't it go and update the book if it's all powerful?
It's just amazing that, like, I mean, again, see, Muslims try to avoid scientific conflict as much as possible. Like, I mean, for example, Christian view being 6,000 year old, Earth being 6,000 year old, which is obviously as absurd as anything. And Noah's flood being global flood, again, another absurd claim. But Allah, I know Quran doesn't say global flood, but Quran also, I mean, if you applied Nadir's logic, Quran also didn't correct the stupid Christians that the flood was not global; it was only localized flood. So Muslims latch onto these things, the vagueness, and they say, no, Quran doesn't say global flood, and we know because global flood is not possible. So they say, so they use that and they avoid the scientific conflict as much as possible.
Actually, it does.
And sorry.
Actually, it does.
What does?
It mentions a global flood.
Well, Quran?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't mention a global flood, Dominic.
It mentions, because it says the earth opened. It doesn't say the earth at a specific moment or a specific region or something opened. It says the earth opened. And the water went higher than the mountains. Remember that the Pharaoh's son? The lower son, he drowned. Okay, you can't have water above the mountains because you can't have that in a regional or local area.
It also says all the animals of the world were on the boat. So if all the animals of the world were on the boat, then it was
global. Okay, all right. I might have been looking at it incorrectly then. Okay, all right. See, Muslims had one on me then, where they managed to convince me that that no, it doesn't use the word global, because I actually did read a lot on that, and I read up. But yeah, you're right. I mean, if so what are the wording? So it says it went over the mountain. So I mean, let's just assume it being Mount Everest, being the tallest mountain. So
it doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be. Even if it's just a mount. What's it called?
Ararat.
No. Mount Sinai.
Sinai. Thank you very much. Yeah. Even if it's Mount Sinai, then it's a global flood.
How though?
Well, you can't have a local flood reaching over Mount Sinai, because if you have a 500 meter or 800 meter mountain covered, how does that work?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, so yeah, that's right. That makes sense. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I never looked at it like that. I was only looking for the global word. Okay, well, there you go. So we can use that. I can use that. So there's one more thing. But Muslims actually try to avoid that. So even with that one, they would have avoided that. Okay, well, it doesn't use the word global or etc. So again, gymnastics, all we're too familiar with.
But this is the thing. You need to be so skeptical. You need to be so careful. You need to really, and this is the point that I'm always trying to make. This is what I told Woodboy as well. What I told Kraus. You need to look for individual words, because they harp on words. The way that they go and say, well, it's a barrier, and it's a barrier. And if you have
so I use that against them.
In the Quran, and you find the word barrier in another book, that means the Quran is already validated, even though it's used completely different. But the word barrier is in the book.
What's the spin? Have you heard? I mean, I use barrier as a literal barrier, like it's some sort of a fence. Well, fuck you. Show me a fence, because the water actually does mix under the surface.
Well, this is something I'm going to spring on our friend Nadir tomorrow, because he is not aware. Well, I can tell you this now. He is not aware that we have talked before, and I educated him on this, but he doesn't know who I am.
Okay,
so he still thinks he's talking to somebody who has no clue, who doesn't know his status. He doesn't know that he's talked to me.
He thinks he's talking to Ibn Abbas. I think this is a photo of Ibn Abbas.
No, he's talking to some nobody.
Yeah. Okay, well, the biggest one that I use in barrier. Anyway, I don't want to let it get out. Actually, I can, because you probably might not know about it. Like, you might not be aware of it. I mean, the biggest weapon against this salt and freshwater fallacy is, if we were to accept Quran is true, that freshwater doesn't mix with the salt water, then we don't have to worry about the rising sea levels, right? We don't have to worry about the half the planet getting inundated or the coastal areas getting inundated.
It's much simpler than that, because we have the salt water in the ocean. You have the fresh water coming in. Where is the fresh water going to go if it doesn't mix with the salt water?
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying. So, I mean, the Muslims are saying, well, it's not going to happen. So why are the sea levels rising then? So that's my whole point.
No, they have to. They should have been rising for millennia, because the water can't go anywhere if it doesn't mix.
That's what I'm saying. So I mean, it does mix. That's why the sea levels rise, and why they don't rise. No. Well, how? So where are they going to go then? So where does the fresh water go?
If they do mix, okay, then the water does not rise. If they don't mix, you're going to have all the fresh water and the rain always coming in, adding more water, because it doesn't mix with the salt water. So you're going to have the same amount of salt water at the bottom because it's more dense and heavier, and then the fresh water coming in on top. And then what?
No, but fresh water does mix with salt water. You do know that, right?
That's what I'm saying. Thank you. Oh, you don't know me. You don't know my video where I actually take a glass and I say salt water here. And then I add the oil and say, this is what we should be seeing. The oil should be on top, but we don't, because they mix. But the thing is that if it would mix, because salt water mixes, the oceans don't rise. It's only when you add ice from the caps and everything that is bound in ice, which then melts, which makes the oceans rise. But if it weren't for that, they wouldn't rise. But if the salt and the fresh water would not mix, then the level of the salt water would not decrease, because it would be at the bottom.
But isn't the ice water fresh water as well?
Yes,
I mean, the polars.
But if that doesn't melt.
But with the Earth warming up, they are going to melt, right? That's the biggest fear, right? So when they do melt, where is that water going to go? It's going to drop in the oceans, and hence the oceans are going to rise.
Yeah, but they're going to rise even if it mixes. So there's no difference. If you add water, it's going to rise, whether it mixes or not. So the differentiating factor here is, even if you do not add the polar caps or any of the water bound in whatever mountains, whatever, if all that stays, if the amount of salt water remains the same at the bottom of the ocean, the rivers are going to be pumping in water all the time.
Yes.
So it should have been rising for the last 50 million years.
Yeah, but there's a water cycle, though. I mean, then it rains, and then when the glaciers get frozen again, and that's why the water gets sucked out again. So
okay, but it should be all sweet water.
No, but I mean,
at the bottom.
But when the water evaporates, when it forms clouds, when it goes into a cloud, that is sweet water. So, and then when it rains on the land, and it becomes rivers, etc., then that is all fresh water.
Exactly. What is the taste of fresh water? Sweet, as opposed to salt.
So sweet water. That's what I meant.
The salt water is at the bottom, and it's only sweet water at the top. So how come the oceans taste salty?
Is that what they're saying?
No, that's what I'm saying. Because salt water is heavier. So if salt water is at the bottom, and exactly what you are saying, evaporation, clouds moving, precipitation, and then moving back. This is all sweet water. The oceans should be full of sweet water.
No, but okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know. What's the word for it? I mean, I read one journal on that, where it explained quite a lot how the estuaries, is that how you pronounce them? They have higher and lower density. That's why it appears on the surface that they're not mixing, but underneath the surface they are mixing.
To have vertically stratified estuaries, those are totally different again. So the Quran is wrong on various levels.
Oh, of course it's wrong. I mean, Quran simply says, but there's a barrier and there are a mix because
that's stupid.
Because even when you're flying over any part of the world, and you see where the rivers falling into the ocean, you can see the different coloring of that. So Muhammad would have seen something around, I don't know, and he would have seen, oh, okay, well, that river is falling there, and it has different coloring. Aha, that's why river is fresh, because he didn't know the rivers were downstream. It's the rivers that are falling into the ocean, and not the other way around.
Has got my point. Thank you very much. But in rivers, did you know this famous photo of rivers where one is like really murky and the other one is crystal clear, and they are running side by side for several kilometers before they mix? That's because of the properties of water. I mean, it's like I always explain this to people, and I explained this to Nadia. The thermodynamics is the same. I mean, if you look at water and air are very, very similar. So if you see, for example, clouds, and you compare what is happening there, you can see the same effects in water, which is why a lot of plane manufacturers used to, for example, test their profiles in water, because it sort of exaggerates the effects that you're going to see in the air. Now, in the air, you can see with your own eyes a front approaching. So if you are, for example, in warm, beautiful weather, you can see a cold front approaching like a wall, and you see rolling clouds like drawn with a ruler coming in. And this is this barrier, and you actually call this a barrier layer, because this layer has a gradual increase and decrease in pressure, temperature, and humidity, and so on, which causes this. But at the border where this layer actually is, of course, there's a lot of mixing. But initially, you will see that the properties of any air mass or water mass is different. That's what we have.
This is why, this is why we see that it's there's different coloring, and that's why
exactly.
And that's where they try to take advantage of it. And I think Muhammad would have looked at it and he would have thought, well, I can use that.
But it's the thing is that the barrier, I think what he's talking about is just the barrier is the Suez or whatever, because it's the barrier between the Mediterranean and the Red Sea. Finished, Clark.
That's what I've heard. I mean, he's specifically talking about Red Sea. I've heard. I don't know. And then Muslims say, well, he has never been there. But another interesting story is, I mean, if he actually went to Petra, I mean, have you heard this theory that Petra might be the Mecca?
Yeah, I think Dan Gibson is propagating that.
Yeah, so you don't?
No.
Look, again, it's so early days. Like, I mean, I'm also not going to just accept anything that goes against Islam. But the one thing that was a very good point, I would say, that the first 100 years of all mosques, they all pointed towards Petra instead of Mecca.
Not really. This is the problem. They go much further west, southwest.
So not exactly Petra either.
Correct.
So you mean, so it could be more so bad geography, really.
Okay. Do you know where Eilat is?
No.
Okay. If you look at the trade routes, the most logical path will be actually going past Jeddah, and then at the end of this pocket, just before you reach Suez, you turn right and to the north. And there's a little, what I would call a natural port. And this is the mouth of the Jordan River. So what you can do is, if you have a port there and you deliver your goods there, that's where you put them onto the caravan, and then they just follow the Jordan River and go up into Syria. And this is where you come across the Dead Sea, and this is now where you come across the sentence in the Quran where they are passing the statues of Sodom and Gomorrah by day and by night. And then it makes sense because you have the sentence in the Quran. So to me, the way that the Qibla was facing in the beginning, there is no real direction in the beginning. They're all over the show. Then they sort of go to a place which is more or less just a bit north of Eilat, somewhere on the Jordan River, but not exactly Petra either. And only later then it gets moved to Mecca.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes sense. Look, I mean, that was the only part. I mean, everything else seemed a lot more circumstantial evidence, where he found the cave of Hira, and he kind of matched. Okay, well, if we look at the hadiths, etc., and it somehow worked out. Well, it's in that direction, and there's a cave there as well. So that must have been the cave he was talking about.
There you go.
And then he went into the politics of Abbasids, and the early conflicts, and how Mecca was kind of superimposed there. So I don't know, like, I wasn't initially sold on that, but yeah, thanks for answering that, because that was one part. So, well, that's so why did he leave that information out? Like, why? I mean, obviously, I guess if he wants to propagate his story, yeah, but that's dishonesty, I'd say. I mean,
well, okay, I have my very own hypothesis that the Quran is actually a recruitment manual. And what they did is they sort of added all the stuff in like 200 years later. And the same thing what the Christians did with Nazareth, which didn't exist at the time, they did the same, they pulled the same stunt with Mecca, because Mecca didn't exist at the time, and they were looking for a small place that they could then take advantage of and say, this is where the miracles happened, this is where Muhammad lived, because the place, nobody knew the place. And they didn't think that 2,000 years later, people would go analyze this and say, well, from a geological, from an agricultural point of view, it's impossible. So it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, well, that's another strong evidence that, I mean, we're told that, there were these cultivated lands, but Mecca is just not possible there.
Correct. Medina, yes, because there we found traces.
So you're saying, well, Mecca probably did not exist. It was brought in later on.
Yeah.
But you also think, so what's your opinion? So there was probably no Mecca at all. Like, I mean, Petra was not Mecca or any other city.
I'm always saying there is no evidence that the Mecca, the way it's described in the Sunnah, existed.
Right.
The same goes for Muhammad. I mean, the Muhammad as described in the Sunnah did not exist. This was also drawn around maybe one, maybe two, maybe three different people who existed at the time, who had certain, characteristics, and then this was drawn around that. Okay.
Yeah, but it sounds too much of an elaborative hoax and to be pulled off. I think it's
Mecca is only mentioned once in the Quran, and it's about the conquering of it. The first 40 years that after Muhammad died and the expansion, 100% of the message faced Petra. And even the Quran gives details, loosely based details on what they said the city of Muhammad was, such as that there's a spring running through it. Well, Mecca has no spring, but Petra does. Mountains, things like that. So last week we actually talked about, and I'm sorry for interrupting, but I thought that was an important part that nobody ever talks about except Quranists. They talk about, or Quranites, however you want to say it, is how Mecca is only mentioned one time in the Quran, and that's about conquering it. And then every other time that they're talking about Al-Masjid Haram, that's, or the Qibla, which it means the changing of direction, it's never verified that it's actually Mecca. But if you, like I said, if you look at the first 4 caliphs, for some reason, under their direction, the masses were pointing towards Petra.
Yeah, well, that's what I think. You want to take that, because I mean, I think you've already answered that it's not quite pointing towards Petra.
Oh, was that Stops that was saying that?
Yeah, I think Stop was saying.
Well, whichever way, it wasn't pointing towards Mecca. That's the main thing, isn't it?
No, yeah, that's what I was saying. That the first 40 years after the Muhammad's death, every mosque started pointing directly towards Petra. Online, even Quranists suggest one. His name is Sam Garens, and he's a former Christian turned Muslim, actually learned Arabic, rewrote the whole Quran according to his belief or whatnot, his verbiage. And what he's even said is, you go, and he's found videos too of the oldest message always faced towards Petra. And it wasn't until the collections of hadiths before they were actually collected, such as in the time of Al-Tabari, who was collecting hadiths, and they weren't authenticated because Tabari was about 100 years before al-Bukhari. So he was putting in hadiths that later became Hassan, Daif, and such. But even during his time, most of the mosques were pointing towards Petra. But once he started collecting all these stories, and Mecca was getting involved, because Mecca is the only city inside of the Quran was actually mentioned by name, that wasn't allegedly destroyed by Allah. If you think of it that way, that's kind of how the mythos would come into play, that every other city mentioned in the Quran was destroyed by Allah, but Mecca is the only one that wasn't.
But are you saying that all the mosques pointed towards Petra in the beginning?
Yes, for the first 40 years, every mosque pointed towards Petra.
Okay, I have different information. That's, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even like I said, the Qur'anite, Sam Garens, I'm not a huge fan of him, but I do watch his stuff because he
That's
gets
interesting. Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Stop.
And it actually takes, if you put it into perspective, that every other city mentioned in the Quran was destroyed, Mecca, then you can kind of see how when they start gathering all these stories about Muhammad, the mythos would come into play. How it would be, oh, well, the only city that Allah didn't destroy that's in the Quran is Mecca. So that must mean that Al-Masjid Haram is Mecca.
Perhaps we can chat about this again in another show. We'll do another show on this or something like that. Otherwise,
well, there's not really.
I appreciate y'all letting me on. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Because you have Dan Gibson putting this forward, but I think it's pretty weak. I think, yes, there are some indications. Yes, there is a lot of evidence that shows that Petra was, I mean, the Nabateans were much, much, much more advanced than any other nation around them. Absolutely. And the influence of the language and the trading and everything is absolutely there. And they were at the center of the trade routes, absolutely. But I don't think that we can say that this is exclusive and that both language and the culture were transmitted to the Arabs completely. I don't think we can do that. And I don't think that it was only Petra that was being worshipped or taken at.
I think that's why I like that theory a lot. Like, I mean, I didn't care about the cave and the spring and all the other things, but one evidence, as I said, like in the first 40 or 50 years, however years that was, like they discovered all the ancient mosques. I mean, if that claim is true in the documentary that I watched, that all of them are pointing towards Petra, then that is something, because he actually drew the lines on the map, and I don't know if they were going off in different tangents, but that's not how he made us believe, or how he made it out to be. So he said, well, all these ancient, I don't know how many, they were like close to, I don't know how many, there was a huge number of mosques in the first 40, 50 years. They were all pointing towards Petra, and they could not have been pointing towards Jerusalem. They could not have been pointing towards current Mecca or Medina. They were all going towards Petra. If that is true, then that is quite something, I think. And that's why
that was pointing somewhere completely else, totally different.
Well, yeah, with that's what I said. I mean, I'm not going to argue that, because I don't know. Like, I haven't verified each and every one of them. I'm just going by what I witnessed. But if that is true, then that is something.
Okay, I don't think we can solve this.
Separate question for you. On that, I mean, everybody, it's not pointing towards Mecca. That's we can probably all agree on that. So, because you kind of talked a little bit about it in the beginning, but there would be an approach that you found effective speaking to Muslims. So if you want to invite, for example, they're standing at a bookstall online or whatever, maybe they're different approaches. And somebody's critical of Islam, what would be the way that you would suggest has been most effective for you in challenging them?
someone who is critical. Sorry, you were breaking up. So someone who's critical of Islam, or someone who is a Muslim and he wants to explore more?
Yeah, sorry, I'm breaking up here. I'll let stop. It's a battle. Yeah, as somebody who's critical of Islam and wanting to engage with Muslims, what have you found to be effective method with Muslims?
Okay. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. Well, again, it's different. I've noticed women are more into morality. If you bring up wife beating, it just goes against their instincts, and so it should. Wife beating is sex slavery. That I mean, the moral aspects of it is very important. Men tend to be more philosophical about, okay, well, where do you think this chair come from? Where do you think the trees came from? And, the usual watchmaker argument bullshit. And then some sophisticated ones try to go into the ontological argument and the cosmological arguments, which is again like same shit, different smell kind of thing. So they tend to be more philosophical and scientific. I think with again, I don't want to sound too sexist. I think the different ways I've noticed people react to, but women are definitely more because they're gentler in nature. I don't know. I mean, again, I'm sorry. I don't want to sound sexist, but the women tend to respond more to the emotional aspect of it. Like, I mean, for example, the morality, like chopping the hands and stoning adulterers, and again, women themselves being the biggest victim of Islam. It's like I always use this analogy, and I say, and I think it applies in these so-called agnostic Muslims as well, and probably on gay Muslims as well. That the women are like they want to be. Watching women defend Islam is like it's like a black person defending a white supremacist group. It's like they just want to be it should be against every nature to be against a white supremacist group for a black person. But this is how this is how Muslim women work. That they're defending an ideology that is against them. Like it says, okay, we're happy to have you, but we're gonna beat you up. I mean, you are allowed to be a part of the family, but you're a second-class citizen. You remain the property, and the Quran is quite explicit in that. And going back to your earlier comment, Stop, you were saying, how this Hamza's approach is a multi-layered approach, but it's pretty explicit when it comes to the rights of people. So I think in terms of women, I tend to use the moral compass of Islam, and with men, I tend to use a scientific inaccuracy and scientific errors. I mean, it's massive. Once you see that, once you've opened up to it, I was talking to a very good friend last night. She used to be a Catholic, and again, like, I mean, I used to talk to her about religion all the time, and she would never engage in conversation with me because I would point out stupid, absurd things in Catholicism, but no, it was blind faith. But she told me yesterday. She said, "Oh, I've been an atheist for 4 or 5 years." I'm like, "What? Like, I'm like the biggest atheist in your circle, and you never discussed that with me?" She goes, "No, she just came to that conclusion on her own, and when she looked at how so many religious countries are the poorest." I mean, again, it's just different, right? I mean, it might not have triggered me because I would have said, "Well, it's a test, right? God is testing you." But in her case, like, what flipped her was the fact that she went through a lot of African countries, and she said, "Well, the more religious these people are, more fucked up their lives are. And why is it? Why is their God making their lives miserable?" So that was a big thing for her to change. And then again, animals, cruelty is another thing that kind of touched her, and she became an atheist. So different things work differently, but I've noticed.
This is lovely. It's so good to hear this. No, because we were just discussing this because I don't know if you know the name Phil, Skydive Phil. He sometimes comes to Speaker's Corner. He's quite science savvy, and he is making exactly this point. And this is now having a huge impact on people. This animal cruelty and animal suffering thing, a huge impact. And this is so good to hear that. Yeah,
I think it would have another huge impact. There are a lot of vegan Pakistanis are coming out, and again, you cannot be a fucking vegan and be a Muslim, right? And I think there's going to be a huge dilemma. I mean, religion always historically has stood in the way of progress. It always has.
No
And
matter whether you're vegan, yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the next biggest challenge is going to be what's going to happen when we get synthetic meat. I mean, everyone else around the world, people will be adopting synthetic meat, given that it's safe and it's all good. People would be, what if we can get our meat painlessly or without the suffering, without inflicting pain on millions of animals around the world, we will get that meat that way. I mean, I'm desperately waiting for it. I've tried to be a vegan, but I've failed.
But it wasn't killed the halal way.
Yeah. Well, that's my point. So I'm coming to that point. Like, I mean, it's so if we can get synthetic meat, the whole world, the developed world, will start taking synthetic meat. The dairy industry will fall apart. But Muslims will still insist that we have to slaughter these cows and camels in the most brutal manners, and just so we can satisfy our imaginary friend that, okay, well, this is how it needs to be eaten. And again, Muslims will remain the biggest source of animal suffering in the 22nd century or the late 21st century, whenever it comes out. Yeah. So it stands against, and I think that's going to be another dilemma, and that's going to hurt more and more people, because generally we are getting softer and softer. I mean, like even now, I mean, I say that I can't imagine. Like, I mean, I just eat chicken now. I've cut out most meat from my life. I just can't let go. Like, I just eat chicken. Like, I need some sort of meat. And I tried to be a vegan, didn't work out. So I just said, okay, I'm just gonna have chicken. I don't have dairy or anything. But imagine that, like when synthetic meat is around, and then generations are being born in that, and then they would look back in time and they would say, oh, that guy, oh, those people, those barbarians, they used to eat animals alive. Like, how cruel were they? They used to torture animals to eat them. Like how we cannot imagine that, 200 years ago, what, you used to own humans as your property? Like, I mean, we cannot imagine that, right? So that's how they will look back at us. And I think there would still be some Muslims around who would keep on insisting that, no, we have to slit the throat of this helpless goat to eat it.
You know, the other, Rob, on last week, he put me onto a Bluetooth phone connection and went to Speaker's Corner. And we went and confronted a guy, and I asked him through Rob, can you explain how we were made from water? Now, this guy said, well, it's very easy. It was special water. It was different water. It's not water as in water. Don't be silly. It's not water. It's a special water. And
it's not H2O.
It's not H2O. It's something special. It's a God water.
God semen, maybe.
Yeah, but this is how they go. This is how dishonest, intellectually dishonest some of these apologists will get. It doesn't matter what you throw at them. What normal person will say, yeah, sure, water, what can you make from water? Nothing. You can't make anything from water. I mean, even from sand, you can make a sandcastle or something. What can you make from water? Nothing. And he said, well, it's special water. It's different water.
These are so then you can say, well, what's the point of using the word water then? Science, exactly. if you say the science is saying water, and science doesn't even say that. I mean, it's a different way of looking at it. I mean, I made a video on that too. I mean, if, for example, like, I mean, I think it's something like the 65% oxygen. If you look at it chemically, there's 65% oxygen in our body. So if Allah, if that verse had said, and we made everything out of oxygen, the Muslims still would have said, right, see, look at us. There's no water part of that. So, and then, what is it? I think 99% of us is like empty space, because the atoms are mostly space empty. Yeah, so if Allah had said, we made you out of nothing, then they would have said, whoa, see? God knew the structure of the atom, and Allah is saying, there you go. Now, so these are just that. I mean, the best word for that is gymnastics, and we can keep bringing that up, and we can keep finding, because it's so intellectually dishonest, you have no choice but to mock them. You have no choice but to make a fool out of them. And by
and we're coming full corner. And this is why I think Rob is asking, what is the most convincing way that we can go and address this? What do you think is effective? What do you think from your experience is going to work? And I think that those are the two things that you said. With girls use that, with men use that.
Well, yeah, that's if the other party is intellectually honest, right? So I mean, if the other side is if the other side is willing to see, okay, well, if Quran says bones and flesh and then bones and then more flesh, and then science says bones and flesh form simultaneously, then there must be something wrong. So you have to, I mean, you don't have to be an Einstein to work that out, right? And to be honest, I didn't even know about this embryonic verse when I became an atheist. My reasons were purely philosophical reasons. Like, like I looked into the cosmological argument and the ontological argument, and then the watchmaker, and then I read Dawkins' book. So I didn't even know that Quran supported a flat earth. Like, I kind of knew it, but I had read the other gymnastics of it, and I said, okay, well, it's not clear, so it's not an open and shut case. But now it is an open and shut case. Like the 16 verses where it says it's spread out like carpet and everything. Like, I mean, a ball can't be spread out. Anyway, so different things work differently.
Ostrich egg.
Sorry?
It's the ostrich egg.
Yeah, well, that's one word. See, this is another thing, right? This is what people like Harun Yahya did, and I'm glad he got arrested. Him and Zakir Naiks of the world, where they said dahaha means ostrich egg. I've spoken to some Arabic speakers, and they say, well, not really. It doesn't mean that, but one thing it definitely means, it also means spread out. Yeah. So if there are 13 other verses that are using,
saying the root is duhia, which is also wrong.
Yeah, there you go. So if the 13 other verses are saying spread out, and this one, let's just say for the argument's sake, this one means spread out and also means an ostrich egg. But if you're being coherent, if you're following the simple methodology, then you have to go with the meaning that is in line with the meaning of the 13 other verses. That's it. Like, I mean, so if you say that's an ostrich egg, then, well, all the others are wrong. Then which one is it? And you need a lot of mental gymnastics. So my point was, like, I mean, you have to. I mean, people would do this gymnastics and you can't do anything about it. So they're just dishonest. That's where I end the conversation, but I usually throw in something that would trigger them. But it may look like I'm trolling them, but maybe I am a little bit. But I have seen its impact. Like, I throw in Muhammad's flying donkey all the time. Yeah. I mean, we all like to laugh at it.
Yeah.
But trust me, I mean, Abdullah Samir had a whole chat with me on his channel about it. That how it's just, yeah, it's just like basically we are, we just straw manning the opposition, but it's not. I mean, he said, well, they would say, well, God can do anything, so therefore he can send you a flying donkey. Well, they can say whatever they want. But if you seriously look in someone's eye, and then you tell them, you literally believe that Muhammad flew on a donkey. So you can imagine the scope of the conversation. So it's going very serious, right? Intellectually, the other person is also feeling good about himself. He's thinking, okay, well, I'm discussing the secret of the cosmos, and this guy is refuting my position, but it's a serious conversation, and in their mind they think they're intellectually honest, but obviously you've worked out that they're intellectually dishonest. So that's when you drop in the flying donkey, and then they feel stupid. That, okay, so you want to go in so much details about what stars are, what came, how, Earth and the Big Bang verse and all that. So they think they're talking about something really scientific and serious. But then you bring in the flying donkey, and you picture the donkey with wings and Muhammad sitting on it, and then going in the upper space. That, it may seem like we're straw manning them or we're trolling them, but it actually has its benefit, where that person might feel offended, the person you're directing it to, but the people who are listening, they can see through that bullshit. They can, okay, well, on one hand, we're speaking something really serious. We're talking about whether that's evolution or not. It's got sound reasoning behind it, and it seems intellectually loaded, that conversation. But then there's a flying donkey. But that's the baggage of Islam. You cannot do anything about it. You cannot run away from it. And the splitting of the moon, etc., depending on which interpretation you take, you can throw these in, and it works. And there's another one that I've started using recently. The shooting stars being these cosmic missiles at the jinns by Allah when they're eavesdropping in the conversation of angels and the God, and angels and the Allah. These are so stupid and pathetic that most Muslims don't know about it. And when they do know about it, they do cringe a little, that it is embarrassing for them. And I think it works.
Okay, but do you agree that it's much more interesting to talk about the contents of the Quran rather than discuss the same old story, does God exist?
Oh yeah, I don't even go into that. I mean, see, this is the big jump that they make. A lot of debaters want to talk about the cosmological argument, the ontological argument, because they think they are onto something. But they think that they're onto something. I say it's a dead horse. Like, when there's no point. The most we can get with those arguments is we don't know. That's the most. I mean, and that's us being charitable. Whether it's likely or not, I mean, of course we can give all types of arguments that why it's not likely for a God to exist. But the most we can go is with this deistic God concept. Yeah, okay, maybe someone did. Okay, if you want to believe in this uncaused causer or unmoved mover, then okay, maybe there was some being who created it, but he left it. He must have left it because the universe is too big the way it works, and it just seems useless. These trillions of galaxies are pointless if we are the only humans if we were the eventual goal, and obviously all the billions of years that we had to wait. But then they make a jump from there. So from this assumption that they think that they're onto something, and they've made an assumption that God exists, and now from there they make this huge jump into their religion of birth or religion of choice. And so now we've established that God exists, and now that God's name is Allah, by the way. And there you go, everything is sweet. So that's how they work. So I don't like that. I mean, I say let's talk about Quran. I would be happy one day if I find evidence that there is a God, but I can bet my life on it that whichever God, if we ever discover, which we're not going to discover, but if we ever discover a God, that God is not going to be any God that humanity has ever come up with.
Agreed. Yeah.
It's just not going to be any God. The gods that we have come up with are so pathetically human, and not just modern human.
Exactly.
They are ancient cavemanish human.
Yeah.
And we're not going to get
that. Creator of the universe and all that, and then he measures how high your bum goes 5 times a day. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, all types of stupid things. Like, I mean, how you should have sex, what you should do, how you should wash your ass after you've taken a dump. I mean, Neil deGrasse Tyson said it really funny. He said, what kind of a designer would create a sewage system and entertainment unit at the same place?
Yeah, I mean, Chris, quick question for you.
What is?
Quick question, if you can hear me. There's potentially a Muslim who wants to come in and have a discussion, and depending how much time you've got left, stops. We were saying perhaps you could have a bit of. You're obviously the guest, so if I give him the link and let him join, you can have a chat. Sure. He was basically saying, who is God in a scientific way? So I'm not sure.
Brilliant. That's exactly.
Maybe you can try that.
What is the most challenging question that's ever been put to you?
Well, to me?
Yeah.
I don't know if there's a challenging question. I mean, the most annoying question is, again, this God question. This God question that we given, and then, as I said, this deistic God. So the most we can establish that, okay, maybe there's a deistic God, but then they make this jump from deistic God to their God. It's just super annoying that how you make that jump, and I kind of lose interest in that conversation. Like it requires huge amount of disingenuity to make that leap. And a lot of people do that now. Again, like, I mean, people, it's annoying to me that how people deliberately use semantics to, and I've noticed that religious people do that all the time. I mean, I think Rob, you sent me that link of the guy at Speaker's Corner. His tactics were so disingenuous, where he's just basically just using, oh, evolution. What do you mean by evolution? Oh, evolution mean the microevolution or the macro. So I mean, they just go around and around, and I don't know if they have to be. I don't think that they're stupid people. I don't think that they're actually stupid. These are actual people who are actually looking into it. But the problem is they're looking into it very selectively. That's why, like, I mean, Nadir is another classic example. He got the line out that he thought fits his Quranic verse, but the moment it didn't fit his Quranic verse, I'm sure he's never going to use that again now. So do ask him that. Ask him, oh, where's the reference that you used last time? Bones and then muscle one. So I think I think it's the power of brainwashing that annoys me. So it's not challenging, I guess, but I guess it is challenging in a way that you can't get them out of this mindset. But yeah, well, what do? You just say it out, and you just hope that other people who are listening might see the point.
But now, have you had a conversation with a theist, with an apologist, where you feel, hey, you know, this was mutually beneficial. This was something that I enjoyed, and we didn't scream at each other. I wasn't, you know, in any way like overly challenged in my patience and things like that, where you thought, hey, this was quite good. This was fun.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't normally yell or shout at people. I mean, even as frustrating as the conversation with Nadir was, I don't think I'll get loud or rowdy at any stage.
Yeah.
It was just frustrating for me, and it's not in my nature to if someone is being dishonest, and then I don't let them run away with it. And I think this is why it probably backfired and became more boring for people to watch, because we wasted the last half an hour on this little question of bone and flesh and bone, etc. Because I just wanted him to acknowledge that, and I think after wasting half an hour, he still didn't acknowledge it, which is a lesson learned, that the people are not going to say what you want them to say, even if they are, you know, they're deliberately being deceitful. Apart from that, I mean, that was frustrating. I mean, my conversation with Rahmatullah was very nice. There were times which were frustrating because there's some silly points that people make and they just go around and around it. But I think overall it was a nice conversation, and my patience, I don't think I generally lose that. I mean, I think I'm very calm most of the time. So yeah.
Okay, I don't want to hog everything here, but I'm just fascinated, and I'm so happy to have you here because you have this hands-on experience and you have this calm that I lack. Okay, so I'm looking at people like you, and I think, okay, what the fuck? How do you do this? How do you stay calm when my pulse is on 180 and I scream at the guy and I mentally slap him and I think, what kind of an idiot are you? And I think, why? How can you keep so calm? Oh,
it's just I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends how long you've been doing this for, how long you've been dealing with same kind of people. I mean, if you are a car salesman, if you stay a car salesman long enough, you would start shouting at your customers too, that it does have fucking ABS, you know, it does have a good aircon. Why don't you get it, right? It's climate control. So I guess it depends how long you've been doing it. I mean, and I think this is bad in there.
I think 2008 I started.
Oh, there you go. That explains it. But I think that's a failure on the theistic part. I mean, they've had thousands of years to come up with better arguments, and they have come up with absolutely nothing. They've come up with more mental gymnastics, one after another, and they come up with these new terminologies. They all mean the same shit. They may sound very clever and intelligent to the believing people, but it doesn't work on us. I mean, you know, like, I mean, it's like this Hamza Zorsi's approach, this multi-layered shit. What the fuck does that mean? Like, I mean, come on, you know you're talking shit. It means it means exactly the same thing that satisfies your need to believe in whatever you want to believe in, and it facilitates your mental gymnastics. That's all it is. Like simply saying, oh, God meant this, so you're going to tell us what God meant. Are you in the mind of the God? Or that's not what God meant. It's all bullshit, and I think it's a failure on religious people's side that they just cannot come up with anything. The best thing that they come up with, the best thing that I get at the end of everything, well, you'll find out when you die. Yeah, right. Sure. All right, I'll find out.
An unfalsifiable claim. Wonderful.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
Rob, how come you're so clear all of a sudden?
Don't know. I'm not doing anything different.
Wow. And suddenly you're as clear as a bell.
Crap internet here, I tell you.
Wow.
I'm still waiting to see if this Muslim will join us. He thought we were going to give him a we're going to give him a, what did he say? I think he's used to using like meeting code. I think it was like, he was looking for, you know, what do you call it? Go to webinar or something. I've made a note that it's Google Hangouts and he needs the Hangout app or go on a computer with a browser. So I think he's trying to make a connection of some kind. But it would be great if you came to the UK and you popped down to Speaker's Corner. I have invited Stops and others, but obviously people live all over the world and Stops is not that keen. He's better to do it in my ear. But you know, if you ever visited London, make sure you come down make sure you're there on a Sunday. You'd have an interesting time.
To be honest, I don't like the way they go on at Speaker's Corner. I mean, it's too much of a shouting and screaming match for my liking.
That's true.
There's no process in place. There's no system in place where one person can speak and then the other person can speak. I would rather have a much more sophisticated conversation than just stand there like, you know, I don't know. It's not something that I mean, I do plan to go to England, hopefully, maybe early next year or maybe later this year. I don't know.
But where do you see the fascination that we have at the moment with Speaker's Corner? Because it's always, it fluctuates, okay? For a while it was the debates, it was this and this. At the moment it's Speaker's Corner. Why do you think that is?
I think because anytime when you break a taboo, it becomes exciting, right? I mean,
it's voyeurism?
Sorry?
It's voyeurism?
A what a reason?
A voyeurism. If the voyeur aspect, the
it could be, and that's a part that where Islam is being criticized like it has never been before.
Okay.
And I think Speaker's Corner is another one where you get these Dawa guys, and early Dawa, and then you have where you have these debates happening between people, and you can get away with so much shit. And I'm telling you, like as I said, 20 years ago, you could not say the shit that we used to say, or that we're saying now, without any threat. Like, I mean, even if I was in Australia 20 years ago saying, well, in Australia probably not, because we never had a big Muslim population. 20 years ago, we would not have had a big Muslim population either. But if I was in England and saying things we're saying now openly in Speaker's Corner, you would lose a tooth or two, or worse. So I think, and I think because Islam is being criticized so much that people, even Muslims, are getting desensitized to it. And I think that's where the fascination is, because it's just amazing. You can just get up there and start talking about it, or not talking. You can actually literally scream and yell at the other side without any violent repercussions.
Yeah, for the most part. Yeah,
I've seen it does get rough sometimes.
Somebody in the chat says, I was in Speaker's Corner last week, avoided Muslim discussions on the cameras. So why the fuck do you go to Speaker's Corner?
Well, we do. Our friend likes to go there as well, and I think he just enjoys the aspect of it, which is again your thing, as you said. Yeah. I mean, maybe he's fascinated by it.
What is the sentiment in Australia at the moment? Because I remember there was this big hoo-ha when this woman tried to get a cop into difficulties.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
stopped her for some infraction, and she sort of just made up stuff on the
She
spot.
said, yeah, he forced. Yeah, she said he tried to take my burqa off by force.
And things like that, yeah. And then the camera showed that none of that was true. So
Yeah.
things like that have happened. What is the sentiment at the moment? Then there came this thing, every Muslim who lives in Australia has the same right of every other Australian, and that is to leave. So, that was a classic thing.
Well,
So what is the
Australians,
sentiment at the moment?
well, Australians are very laid back. I mean, they don't generally. I mean, of course, we have the media and the political correctness culture, like every Western country. But I sense the general public, they're very laid back, and they don't. Whereas as Aussies like to say, well, I don't give a fuck, mate. So Australians don't like to give a fuck about anything. I mean, if they see it, we have this bogan culture where if they see some bullshit, they would not hold back in taking a piss out of something, and they would criticize it. But again, the urban population is different from the rural population. The rural population are more laid back, and the general sentiment, I would say, it's not anti-Muslim, which is a good thing. So it's very neutral, but they also don't suck up as much as you would see in England. I mean, England is just, it's just a disaster, really. Like, I mean,
Or Germany.
Germany is worse. Australia's not like that. I mean, we haven't really laxed the immigration for Muslims, so to speak. I mean, again, like, I'm not against Muslim immigration or even taking some refugees, but I'm not in favor of allowing anyone in. Definitely not on the scale how Canada has done or Germany has done. I think people deserve, without any prejudice, people deserve a right to be given a safe haven or a safe country if the country can afford, if it has the resources. Australia is already stretched as it is. I mean, we are a small country. I mean, the land-wise, we're huge, but I mean, infrastructure-wise, I mean, we've only got 4 major cities. So general sentiment, I'd say, it's not bigoted towards Muslims. It's not anti-Islamic, but they are careful. They know they don't generally. They don't bend over backwards like some of the Western countries, to put it. Yeah.
Okay.
I think,
DJ?
Yeah, I just had a quick question. What do you think is behind this, leftist, Islamic sort of alliance? Like, wouldn't you think that they would be on opposite ends? Why do you think this is the case?
Yeah, well, the leftist media or this whole leftist movement, which has gone so crazy. I mean, that's where they fucked up. From when they started branching off the classic liberals, that they said, okay, we have to stand by the minorities, and that's where they stop. They don't go a step further. What is this minority? I mean, if there was some Nazis as a minority in, let's say, in United States, would you have defended them to a point that, okay, let them go and beat up some black guys every now and then? Come on, I mean, it's the part of their belief system. The leftists would not have supported them, and for good reasons. But with Muslims, with Islam, they just turn a blind eye towards everything else that this minority does to minorities within this minority, like women and homosexuals, etc., and apostates. There's so many stories even in Australia about how apostates are treated in Australia. I had an article that was featured in Daily Mail, and I was glad that, okay, well, media. So, well, glad Daily Mail is not really a leftist media. I mean, Daily Mail is just tabloid. It would just take anything. And they featured that story, and I thought, okay, well, and we were featured on ABC News as well, which is a very moderate, centrist kind of media, very neutral. So it's a very well-respected media outlet, especially, at least in Australia. I don't know about America. And there was a story featured on them, and again, there was a sense of anti-Muslim bigotry rising. And then I was asked by Channel 7, which is also not a leftist media. That's why they probably asked me to come on the show and talk about the issues of ex-Muslims. The physical abuse. I'm not talking about mental abuse. The physical abuse the teenage ex-Muslims go through when they run away from the house, when they're forced to run away from the house after denouncing Islam. But they say, well, sorry, it's just I was promised that I would be flown to Sydney and talk about it on the morning show. But then they said, no, maybe some of the time now is not the right time. So there's always the leftist media pressure, the political correctness. And that's why they do it, because I think that the left obviously think that, okay, well, I think Ayaan Hirsi said it perfectly, like it's a bigotry of low expectation. The leftists think, well, we are white, Muslims are brown, so we have to respect them, we have to protect them. But whatever problem they have within their community, they can solve it themselves. I'm not going to talk about misogyny, I'm not going to talk about homophobia, even though it's against every leftist policy or point of view. I'm not going to talk about it. And that's bigotry of low expectation is the only thing. I mean, they've just lost their way, and how they're going to counter that, and that's why, I mean, we're seeing leftists are becoming more and more rowdier, and they're becoming more mindless zombies than the right wingers. I mean, this Antifa shit. I mean, it's just, I mean, it's not as bad in Australia now, but I have a feeling it's the clashes. I mean, we're getting more and more polarized, and we don't know where we stand anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I can speak for myself in the States. I think that, to me, it's going to come down to demographics. I mean, if you just look at Europe, Muslims are just, outbreeding everybody. And right now in America, their population is only at 1%. But I think to myself, what if that population gets to 10 or 20%? It's not going to be so docile. It's not going to be so nice. And that's what scares the shit out of me.
Yeah, but by the time it becomes to 10 to 20%, America is doing so good in the other aspect, though. But if it does get to 10%, it might take another 50 years. But if it does get to that stage, you also have to assume or put into consideration that some of those Muslims are going to become ex-Muslims. I mean, the recent survey said that 37% of Muslims born in America are now ex-Muslims. So these guys are not a threat to America in any shape or form. And if anything, these ex-Muslims are going to help out, the American values of freedom and standing up for individual liberties and all that. So these are actually allies in that regard. Europe is just a bizarre case. I mean, every time I look at England, I just can't work out what the fuck went wrong.
Okay, guys, I think we've gone long enough.
Mm.
It's 3.5 hours, and I want to thank Harris very much.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for coming on
brilliant.
so early in the morning.
Can I have 30 seconds? I think
sure.
that I could say, with the question about liberalism and Islam siding together, think of it this way. Liberals, a lot of them are communist/socialists. None of and they always say the same thing that Muslims say about Islamic countries, that, they're not true Islam, or those aren't true communist countries, those aren't true socialism. So everything that these two sides look at the systems across the world that they support, and they see it failing in every time. So they get together on that concept, in the sense that it's always, they're not doing it right in Saudi Arabia. That's not true Islam as a government. And then you say, but you know how to do true Islam as a government, right? And of course they do. Just like every communist says that China or North Korea or the Soviet Union weren't true communists, that they could have done better if only they were the ones in power. And that's kind of how they get together on that concept. Sorry for interrupting.
I just want to quickly finish my point. Well, obviously, it's gonna need a whole different debate, and it's a very volatile subject as well. I am one of those liberals who are socialist people, and I think your comparison, I think it's a false dichotomy, because Muslims cannot say that it is not the true Islam, because there is a book that is unchangeable.
Just because they can't say it doesn't mean that they don't. Just
No.
like,
So no. I know they say it, but I'm saying I, as a socialist, can say, and I have good reasons why I can say that China or Soviet Russia was not a good example.
But it was an example, correct? That's the issue that I'm saying, is that
Because I
both of
don't
the leftists
have a moral.
Go ahead.
No, Australia is lagging.
Oh, okay.
No,
Well,
was I? Okay.
it's
Okay,
just
go
the
on.
point that what I was trying to make is it drives these two people together, because they can both say, oh, well, our ideologies have never come into fruition the way that it's supposed to be. And every time you give an example of a failed state, such as you're a socialist, I can say Venezuela. You can come up with various arguments of why, well, that's not true socialism, or that's not the way that I would implement socialism. And that's the same way that Muslims and leftists do for theocracies and such. It's always whatever the individual socialist, communist, or Muslim thinks that the way of government should be is the correct. It's never the people that implement it do it correctly.
Yeah, but that always is the case, though. Like, I mean, one can make an argument around the right wing as well, that they say the same thing, that okay, well, this is not the proper. I mean, Nazis might say that that Hitler was not successful in creating the true Nazi state.
Well, I mean, honestly, socialism, the only time that socialism was successful was under Nazism. Hitler was incredibly great at implementing socialism, but then he went off the deep end with his racial banter and extermination of people. But as a socialist leader, he provided better socialism for his whole country than any country since him.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's a totally different discussion, I guess. We could probably save it for some
we were just about to finish, but we have got a Muslim gentleman in here. Maybe we'll stay on for a short while
Hassan,
here.
okay.
So Hassan, good evening, welcome. You're on the Jinn&Tonic, and obviously you're with our guest Harris. So maybe you could have a brief conversation with Harris, and then we're going to wrap up the show for tonight.
Assalamu alaikum, Hassan.
Just joined the chat because I really watched the.
Go ahead. You're lagging there. Maybe take your video off. Just disable your video there. That might help.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah,
we can hear you now.
Is actually ruin Islam and the Islam messages all over the world. Starting from ISIS things and other things from old stuff that happened during the history of Islam. It's really bad thing that people are talking.
Hassan, can you switch off your video somehow?
Yeah, sure.
Because
switch
the
off.
First two words are there, and then you're drowning out, and I think the bandwidth is not okay. Try again.
Yeah, now it's good.
Much better.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is a lot of people actually all over the Arab world and Middle East are ruining Islam, and that's why Islam history is not good in the way that people are looking at it. In case of the Prophet Muhammad or the stuff like this, actually, I'm not here to defend. Actually, what I'm trying to say is, throughout all the history of all the religions, from Islam, Christian, and Judaism, there is a lot of things happen, a lot of massacres happen, a lot of fighting, a lot of blood have been suffocated in the sake of Allah, which we call in Arabic Allah. the sake of God. What really God is, I don't know if all the books really are telling the truth about the real God is. It is a tremendous power of the universe, if it's existed actually. But what we see in Islam actually is that there is things good in Quran, which is how we live, which is how we act, how we marry, and how this kind of social stuff.
Hassan,
Yes.
Sorry, so I think I got your point. So my question to you is, I mean, obviously you're acknowledging there are good things and bad things in Islam, and then obviously we haven't been able to form a good Islamic country so far in the first 1400 years. So what are the odds of it happening again? Probably not. So, but you're saying that you believe in a God, that there is some power. So that's fine if you want to believe in that God. Like, I mean, I think, was it Bertrand Russell who said, no, sorry, it was Feynman who said that if you say that God is energy, then you can find God in a lump of coal. So if you think that God exists or some sort of a power, why don't you stop there? Why do you have to go the next step and go with Islam, even though you know that there are a lot of bad things in Islam, and Islam has not been successful in establishing itself as a social structure, for instance?
Mm-hmm. Well, let me tell you something. It's really country, and how this is how I raised as a Muslim in a Muslim family. Okay, so
Are you hearing it? I'm hearing he's breaking up.
Sorry, that's what we call it, God here.
Okay. Yeah, but why does that God has to be Allah?
Thing, but just 1 minute. Not all of us believes that these % true. We are doubting right now in this sense. Okay, so there's a lot of confusion about this matter all over. There's no God actually, or this have been just the creating of this.
No,
I believe
this doesn't make sense.
I think the audio quality is very poor, Hassan.
Yeah, Hassan, we
can't
Hassan,
really understand.
Coming to the end of the show, we can't hear you properly. You keep breaking up there. We'd love to have you come back onto the show at some point, but we've come to the end of the show basically, and we cannot hear you clearly. You keep breaking up. So, in the interest of time, I'm gonna thank you for coming on, but I'm gonna close the show off now. Feel free to come and join us any Friday. We normally start at 8 p.m. on the UK time. And we've had a guest on today, but we can't hear you. Hopefully your internet will be better in the future, but I do want to bring the show to a close because we've had our guest on. I don't want to keep him here forever. So,
but thank you for coming on and trying to explain that. I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.
All right, Stops, if you can do us a hadith of the day, then we'll say our final goodbyes and thanks to
me again.
Hassan. We always do a hadith that shows something of interest.
Right.
Put it that way.
Have you used a camel urine one so far? I'm sure you have.
Probably have some time back. I mean, it would have been ages now, but Stops is very good at sort of finding these things quickly.
The Gondal is very good with that too. I mean, his knowledge of the absurd things in Islam. I don't know if you've seen his video, him and Abdullah Samir, the stories in Quran. There are so many, like, I mean, some of the stories, even I didn't know that they were so explicitly stupid.
Can I give you one better?
Go on then.
Yeah.
I've done this one, but a long time ago. It was one of the first ones. This is from Bukhari, volume 9, 84, 6922. One night, the Prophet got up and went to a side to urinate in the bowl. During the night. You know where this is going?
Yeah, go on. This is hilarious.
During the night, I rose and was thirsty, so I drank whatever was in it and did not even realize what it was. In the morning, he said, "Oh, Ayman, throw away whatever is in the bowl." And I replied, "I drank what was in the bowl." He, Muhammad that is, thereafter smiled, as such that his teeth appeared, and said, "Beware, you will never have stomach pain."
Yeah. So it says camel urine sometimes that is prescribed for stomach pains. And now I think Muhammad, I mean, I don't know how true are these, but if they are true, I think Muhammad obviously would have been an ordinary human. And that would have been the sense of humor back in those days, right? And like a practical joke, like let's throw a lump of shit at someone. That's funny, right? I mean, and so I think Muhammad had some sort of a sense of humor. Like with these things, he did that. He would laugh. And there's another very funny one. Very quickly, I'll finish it. I think we've probably gone over a minute. That this woman who said that, well, O Prophet of Allah, there's a man I adopted. He's now grown up, and he looks at me with lusty eyes. What should I do? And Muhammad said, well, breastfeed him. And she's like, Prophet of Allah, he's a grown-up man. What can I do? He said, with a smile, breastfeed him. And so, and it's not, the hadith is not clear whether she put it in the cup and then gave it to the guy, or he actually suckled on the tits. I mean, we don't know, but either way, Muhammad pulled off a really good, funny, practical joke. So I think Muhammad was a funny man.
I think that's a good way to end it.
Loving rascal. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Harris, thank you so much for joining us, for getting up so early in the morning. We really appreciate it. Thanks to all the panelists. Thank you to Hassan as well. Hassan, if you want to join us next week or at a future date, feel free to message me. Thanks to my co-host Stops. Thanks to all the viewers. We'll be back again next Friday. 8 p.m. UK time is our standard start time. A bit early for Harris to join us on a regular basis, but we'd love to have you back anytime, Harris. So again, thanks very much.
Or if he gets to bed very late.
Yes, crazy late, as in like the next day. And with that, thanks to everybody, and we'll see you again.
TJ, why don't you ask, because TJ is asking if you want to have a twosome, or are you going to have breakfast? Okay, you two sort it out.
Will do.
Good night, everybody. Goodbye.
Good night, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Enjoy your porridge, and we'll see you next Friday. Bye.
See you next time. Thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Good night.